By the time NHIF was wound up in November 2024, it had a whopping debt of 33 billion shillings. The debt, the president said, has affected the ability of health facilities to effectively provide services under the new health scheme. It comes amid growing calls for the government to immediately suspend SHA as it continues to face scrutiny over allegations of corruption and system failures. Busia Senator Okello has said SHA operations should be suspended to pave way for thorough investigations into revelations by the Auditor General that the government neither owns nor controls its systems. But Health CS Deborah Baraza, while acknowledging the Auditor General's report, has said the issues raised will be addressed in Parliament if the ministry is given a chance. And Treasury CS John Mahdi has maintained that the government will not scrap SHA but will address the challenges occasioned by the transition from NHIF.
And I hope and I believe that the line ministry will do justice to Kenyans by making this system work, make it more efficient. Problems which are there are bound also to be there because any new thing must have challenges. But those challenges must be dealt with within a period of time so that the system works. We cannot afford to lose this. We cannot afford to lose this system.
Badi, who spoke in the Senate, went on to outline Treasury's plans to enhance service delivery under SHA, including an allocation of 6 billion shillings.
Treasury has supported SHA. It's not true that we haven't supported. Even in the current supplementary 2, we have allocation of 6 billion to support SHA, 3 billion to support primary health care, and another 3 billion to support critical care, health care. By the way, it may interest members to understand also from the information I have is that the critical health care was not being provided under NHIF. But under SHA, the government has insisted we must provide. And we must make resources available.
Now, clinical officers have downed their tools once again over unresolved grievances. They accuse the government of failing to implement their 2024 return to work formula and excluding their members from SHA. The Kenya Union of Clinical Officers chairperson Peterson Washira said the government has denied them the right to access health services. It comes a month after the union suspended an early industrial action for 21 days following negotiations with the Council of Governors and the Ministry of Health. Now, dozens of people continue to get treatment in various hospitals after they were injured in Nairobi's Majengo area following violent clashes between police and residents. The Kenya Red Cross said they attended to 37 casualties and evacuated 2 critically injured individuals to Kenyatta National Hospital and Pumwani Maternity Hospital. A police house and vehicle was set on fire as tensions flared. The chaos ensued when residents took to the streets to vent their anger over Tuesday's fatal shooting of a 17-year-old boy whom police say was a suspected bang peddler. The government plans to conduct a census of street families to provide them with appropriate living conditions. Labour Cabinet Secretary Alfred Mutua, who spoke when he appeared before the Senate, said the government was reworking the rehabilitation and identification of street families in order to reintegrate them into society. He said the census will be undertaken once the budgetary allocation for the exercise is finalised. That's the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 SpiceFM, Kisumu.
If we just gloss over issues and hope that time heals, then we might find that in generations to come, we might be back at the same situation. And the whole thing is born of stolen elections.
Spice.
When it comes to the decisions you make, you must be independent. There's no way you can allow one institution to dictate to you how you're going to conduct your operations, how you're going to decide cases. It's a no.
When you weaken the institution to the point where they cannot take action, then you realize that politicians have to come up and now start dealing with the issues.
That conversation has to die. Our politicians do not like the hard stuff. We must insist on the path of doing things right, whether popular or unpopular.
Money changes hands. That is a fact. If you have political goodwill at the highest top, like in Rwanda, then corruption will be an issue of the past. If you don't have political goodwill at the top, we will pass laws, we will amend laws, we will continue passing laws and re-amending laws, and nothing will happen.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Online, mobile, and on radio. Facebook at SpiceFM KE. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. I didn't mean to cough. I was actually speaking and then other things are happening at the same time. But here we are. It's the 6th of March and it's 6 minutes after 6 o'clock. How about that?
Oh, nice.
I'm telling you, things just happen like that. I saw what you did. You said the 6 and then the second 6 and then the third 6 and you realized, what have I said?
She said 6.
What have I done? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, CT. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Why are you whispering?
I'm very well, thank you.
Oh, just a little bit louder of a whisper.
I'm very well, thank you.
Well done. Anki, good morning.
Good morning.
What's wrong?
Nothing.
Somebody inside there is tickling you, Abby.
Inside where?
There where you're looking.
No. He's on my right.
The one who's tickling you?
Yes.
Okay.
How are you, Ndu?
I'm fine, thank you.
Ndu, green. Your
yes,
favorite color.
My favorite color, yes.
You look adorable.
Ndu, the great identifier of ticklers.
I just asked the question.
Of course you
People
did.
answered the question.
Yes,
How do you want me to do this morning? I just asked. Yes, and the answer came.
Okay.
From
Boss, whom?
The heat is sweltering. The days are longer, and of course, the days being longer, the nights are shorter, and it is
very
hot.
short.
The nights are shorter.
Yes.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Hey, man, they're very short.
You've barely slept, and the cock is crowing.
Exactly.
Even in the middle of town. Where on earth did this chicken come from?
Exactly.
Middle of town. Where do you live?
You don't worry. Just know that there's a cock that's crowing in the middle of town.
Maybe I don't live near town.
I don't know my neighbors keep chicken.
Exactly. But they crow at the oddest of hours, don't they? You should not be...
Oh.
Exactly.
Tell us what Ednah told you. Tell us what Ednah's told you.
No, we all want to know what cocks are doing in Nairobi in the first place.
You don't eat them?
Pet.
So when you're eating them, you do not question.
That is my point.
Until they crow.
It should be in the plates and not outside making noise at 1:30 in the morning. That's the point.
You know, if it's alive, it does a lot more. Once in the plate, the story is finished.
Kabisa, with a side of ugali and greens.
Yes.
Done. Finish.
Hey.
But yeah, the days are longer. So when we say the days are longer, it means the sun is setting at a later hour and then it is rising at an earlier hour. It's just a season and maybe the rains are coming. We'll see. But that heat is crazy and all the creepy crawlies are running out from the heat and are coming into the house. Yeah.
No wonder.
Ants, you'll find ants. My neighbor found a scorpion yesterday. Yeah, all sorts of things.
I have been not a hunter, but I've been killing that stuff like a gatherer, yeah. Lately.
You've been a gatherer. Oh my goodness. Well, it's a new morning. Ednah is here shining bright like a diamond.
Ooh.
And she's nodding because we've recognized. And everybody, look, we don't take it for granted. We get to do the show every day. And there are folks who are working and making it happen. So we just want to say a big shout out even to our friends over here who are working in Berur, Radio Maisha, Frank, I can see you, everybody there, and I can see you as well. I keep forgetting your name. Ednah, tell me his name.
Mambo.
There you go. So we don't take it for granted, guys, that the wheels of this show keep turning and there are folks who are making it turn every day. And of course, Eddie Love, a big shout out to you. Coming into this morning, there are a number of conversations that we will have today. The 2G program is one that has been founded by the KCB Foundation. And we're going to have a conversation around the impact of that program on certain people. And today we get a chance to talk with Mendy Njonjo, who is a director of the KCB Foundation, as well as John Mutunga, who is one of the participants. That conversation we'll be having at 8 o'clock. And then at 7 o'clock, he was once a governor of a county. Today, he's a cabinet secretary. Lydiah Njonjo is the CS for Investments, Trade and Industry. We'll be talking about enhancing economic stability and why local production is the way to go. For me, this is my baby. If we don't produce, if we don't sell as nations, if we don't manufacture and get surplus and profit, we will not develop. For me, it's very, very, very basic. He's going to be talking to us about that. He'll be here at 7. Lydiah Njonjo. Hello? Okay. And then we're going to talk to the president at 9 a.m. Dennis Aseto will join us at 9. Dear Mr. President, first of all, the Auditor General gave a damning report. And she has said certain things. And we are all behaving as if the circus is coming to town and there's no big deal. Omo, it is a big deal. We're going to be talking about that to the president at 9 o'clock. And thank you so much for always joining in. We're going to ask you to continue and add to that conversation with us at 9. So that's what we have lined up today. And we're going to be looking into a number of those things this morning as we go along. And in a minute, we're just going to say hello to you. But as I remind you about the KCB Foundation, which we'll be talking about today at 8 o'clock in more detail, 155,000 young people so far have gone through this program. That's a big number. And if you want to do that in comparison to the 1 million people that enter into the job market every year, you're going to say, well, there's some who don't have the skills that they need. So the KCB Foundation, through the 2G Ajiri program, has made this possible. To get into a 6-month training program, you get the skills that you need across various sectors and industry, and then you come out on the other side ready to start a job, or you get tooled to be able to start your own business. There's also, the opportunity to get access to credit that boosts the business as well. So it's happening, and you can also be part of it. Talk to somebody you know. It could be you. You need that extra boost to be able to get a leg up in life. The KCB 2G Ajiri program under the KCB Foundation is doing just that. Find out more information on KCB Group/Foundation. Okay, see, to Wasalimie Basi. And we know that a lot of people who are clicking in this morning, look, man, the love, we feel it, it is real, and we really are not able to do this show without you, or be able to have these conversations that are important for the nation and indeed the world without you. So, good morning. Tell us if you're clicking in for the first time and tell us where you're clicking in from. Alafu tutakusalimia vizuri sana, and every now and then I can throw in some Kiswahili. Agri Momanyi is greeting us this morning and says, good morning. If you close your eyes because you don't wish to see your enemies, you will not be able to see your friends. This is very true. Sometimes you just have to open the door and let everything in. Nyamigori.
Do you pronounce that like somebody you and I both know?
Somebody we both know.
Yeah, somebody we both know. He would pronounce it just like that.
Who is that?
Just like that.
Who is that person?
You do not know our mutual someone?
Hey, God. Have you ever heard we have a mutual somebody?
Yeah, we do. That's the only person we both know, but he would pronounce it just like that. So yes, thumbs up to whoever texted that.
It has not finished. I've just started. I've not finished the statement.
Oh, there is more.
There is more.
Oh, okay.
So that was just gidigam. They started the story. Now, let me tell you what they asked.
All right.
Are you single? Yes. Okay. Don't worry. Just you continue.
Yeah.
Michael Olande is greeting us from Kigali City. What is the next scandal? Well, there's one already here, and we're going to be talking about that at 9 o'clock. There's a big one, folks, and we need to look into it. Cyprian Kambuni says, Habari Aleo. Robert Mbogo is greeting us from Mombasa. Rongo. Where's Rongo?
Migori
it's in
County.
Migori County.
So like after Kisi,
okay,
you're going to Rongo, like that.
Okay.
So no.
Then you go to Awendo.
Then Awendo. Ranen?
Awendo seems like it should be in a song.
Yeah,
Awendo.
I'm sure it has been sung, just haven't heard the song though. But
I could make one up.
Yeah,
I would love it.
I can try and do something.
All right.
Hey, Rose Grace is greeting us from guess where?
Tamu, of course.
Of course, has to be Tamu. And Anatupenda Sana, she's tuned in from Tamu. Hello, Princess Ndu. Good morning, Leo, CT and Dorice. Does Kenya own anything these days? E-citizen, private, hot tax, private, SHIF shop, private. And who signs a non-compete agreement these days with the ever-revolving technology? I'm telling you, it's not a small mystery. Greetings from Juja Farm, aka Mount Kilimambogo View. Good morning, Stanley Ngashe. How are you? Men of God and politicians' donations gone sour. I know. The CS Alfred Mutua came out guns blazing. King Dave has decided that you will be Dorice of Bethany. Now,
the baptism.
My sister, I don't understand. But look, just take it like that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Wait, no. I'll think about it.
Oh, you're still thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. CT, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks. King is also dedicating Isoko for me. Ogeneovie. Okay, Ogeneovie. It's true.
What does it mean?
Ogene it's the Shekiri language in Delta. I told you there are 340 plus languages in Nigeria. Shekiri is one of the languages in Delta State where I'm actually from, but it's not my language. So the Ishekiri are the river people, and Ogene is a greeting. Actually, interestingly, I greet my mother Ogene, but it is anyway. Look, it's just very different kind
We'll
of
talk
thing.
later.
We'll talk about it later. But I'm very impressed, King, that you know that. Kings and Queens of SpiceFM, good morning, rise and shine. It's another opportunity to live by our values and brotherhood, loyalty and service. Indeed. Good morning to you. Don Sabwa says, how are you? We are fine. This temperature, are they real or we have more under one sun? Well, that's a good question. Agola, good morning. She says she loves my green. Well, I love you. Agola, me, I just love you. Sawa. Just take me like that. But thank you very much. Sandra Sheria says good morning. Mr. Wiz says good morning, tuned in from the UK. Making my day already, says Atieno. Atieno, good morning. Good morning, fam, says Salex. Dr. Venvik is tuned in from Tudor in Mombasa. And Fisherman just says, Raila Amolo Odinga. Sawa. No problem. We understand. One day a leader will sell this country. CT will go to Malawi. Where will you go? From Tampere. CT, you're planning on going to Malawi. You didn't tell us. You've been telling us these things so we can even do
farewell.
Bas, that's the word. I was going to say housewarming. But when somebody goes...
No, when you get there, you can warm the house.
Bas.
Oh, no. Why did they pick Malawi for him, though? Let's move on.
I don't know. Moving on. Hot wings. Yum, yum. Which wings? Nick Bala says, good morning. The sun shines and it's being paid. I'm telling you, it's not a small wahala. Hello, Spice. I love you guys. It says Wasili. Ndu, that green color looks good on you. Thank you so much. Good morning, Team Spice. Ednah, watu wanasema tulete Ndindi Nyoro. She has said no problem. She will bring him very fast. Christina, Miss Care. John Gishoki is greeting us this morning and she says, good morning, all of you who love the Situation Room. Hi. Jimmy Gakio is tuned in this morning. George Okoh, we see you. Good morning to you as well. Anne Gore, beautiful lady, good morning. The question that George Okoh is asking, Ruto says, those who oppose Shah and she are corrupt. Arrest them.
Who said that?
Don't know. Said arrest them. Sawa. Hello, good morning, team. Good morning. Tuned in. This is Jose Mahinda. God bless the morning. Indeed, may he. Peter Ray is here. Ben Carson is also tuned in. Robinson Gatiba says good morning. Ben Nyalwide says good morning. He says, Anki, I admire the way you conduct your work with gusto. You share. Silence when one is asked if they are single means they are single. Unachambua. Hey. Chef says good morning, tuned in from Embakasi. Good morning, Team Spice. Greetings from Toowoomba. They're experiencing Cyclone Alfred.
Toowoomba, I told you I have relatives there.
Uko, Papua New Guinea.
No, that's Brisbane area.
Australia. Papua New Guinea, New Zealand, Uko, the South Pacific.
Australia.
Australia. Toowoomba is in Australia.
Yes, it is.
That one.
Okay.
Yes, City has family, Uko. This guy is exotic. Good people. Guys, City's volume is always low. Why is it low? Iregi, good morning. Listening from Queensland in Australia is Anyang Tiop, where Mr. says good morning, tuned in from Alcor, north of Doha. Good morning, another day to hustle for government and be eaten by them. No. Ramadan Kareem, indeed, and happy Lent. Yesterday was Ash Wednesday, which marks the beginning of Lent for many of us. Greetings from Edmonton, Alberta. I'm a regular viewer of your program. Well, John Modibani, good morning, and thank you for tuning in this morning. Tune in from Welwyn in Garden City, and Salam kutoka Tampa, Octin. Hey, everybody's here this morning. We can see you guys. Karibuni, sana. CT.
Yes.
We are still in...
We are in the Republic of Burkina Faso.
Hanky, what's the capital of Burkina Faso?
Ogadao. Look, guys.
I did this for your pleasure, CT.
Ogu. It's not. I have the spellings, the pronunciation, guys. Just help. Ogu. Ogud. Oh no! Do not do this. Ogudo. Help me. Ogudao.
Yes, it's that.
It's Ogudao. That's not nice.
I had to laugh.
It's the pronounce.
No, it's actually a good. It's actually a good thing. A country discovered.
You did that for his pleasure. You know very well. The same way some people can say Ngombe.
Yeah, this Ogudao is a good town.
Tell me.
It's good the people of Burkina Faso didn't know that they have certain.
Yeah, Ogudao.
No, just pronounce it.
Town that they just figured they have.
Just do it, CT.
We wanted you and Ouagadougou.
Ouagadougou, yeah. I keep interchanging in my head. Still I can't.
Ogudao.
Ouagadougou what?
Ouagadougou.
I still can't.
Right.
You know what? We need to really get Ndu out of this situation room today. Ndu, that was so not nice. Ouagadougou, I still can't.
Can you see how I'm happy? Is it not good?
I still can, man.
God in heaven.
Anyway, let's move on.
We know what you mean. That's why we're relaxed about it.
Ouagadougou.
Yes.
All right, let's move on.
Please.
No, look what city. Sometimes I just can't grasp some words.
Don't worry, I'm like that
names
also.
like that.
Even me,
I don't know what that is.
There are things I have difficulties with. But that's why you see I'm not laughing. Because I understand the difficulty you're going through. I mean, Ouagadougou is so difficult to pronounce.
What?
Right, the proverb. Hey, right. You know, countries share proverbs. We've heard this proverb before, but I liked it. So I thought this one is good for Thursday. I liked it.
Okay.
Those who seek revenge must remember to dig 2 graves.
Huh?
Those who seek revenge must remember to dig
2 graves.
Yes.
Graves. Yeah.
Yeah.
And 3.
Yeah, 1 and 2.
Yeah, for the person you're digging for and for yourself.
Because you may think it is you who is going to, that person will precede you. You might precede them. Right.
What's it?
Revenge is mine, says the Lord.
This particular proverb struck me because I was thinking of just the tragedy that has been Burkina Faso. A country with so much promise. That country is mineral rich.
Yeah.
Okay? It has land. Okay? The mainstay of most people is agriculture. But just to get all that organized so that the people can actually do their thing and the citizen can benefit, that thing has eluded them since independence. Independence kidogo ku. Kidogo ku. Kidogo ku. I mean, come on, man. It's
been tough.
And you have to understand, it's not as though it's a national pastime. It is good to read and understand. We have really many problems in Kenya, but they pale into a distant insignificance when you compare them to the problem some countries have.
Yeah.
Even this conversation we're having here, laughing here, where?
No, you won't.
Where?
You won't. Walking on the street is a problem.
Yes, and in broad daylight, not even at night.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be grateful for in this country.
There is.
Amidst all these problems that we have.
Yeah.
And man, there are many. Anyway.
All right.
Special.
Be prepared to dig 2 graves. Dig for somebody else in revenge.
Yeah.
Let's look into the headlines this morning. Just the headlines, and then we will look into the stories in detail. On Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard, the headline, Clueless Health CS, Deborah Barasa, appeared ill-prepared to face the press after calling for an interview. When questioned on the public health insurance scheme, she struggled with answers, just like when she appeared before Senate last week. It doesn't look pretty, guys. She said, and I quote, "We are cognizant of the issues that were raised by the Auditor General. The ministry clarified and substantiated each issue and provided the management report to the AG. These issues have been comprehensively addressed by the accounting officer, who is the PS Medical Services." Okay. Legislators are in shock. According to Okello Mtata, Busia Senator, there is not a country in the world that has effectively implemented universal healthcare that is funded through premiums, but through taxes. Kenya is a signatory to the Abuja Declaration. When did we turn away from this and make citizens pay for this? Inokwambua, who is the Kitui senator, said, "I am completely underwhelmed by the responses from the CS. I want to join my colleagues in requesting the House that the CS makes arrangements to appear before a committee of the whole House." Richard Onyonka, the Kisi senator, says, "I see the CS struggling. I believe that this matter cannot. Maybe we need to have it in a committee. Everything I hear is just confusion. Can we, as Senate, ask the CS to go and prepare herself?" Edwin Sifuna, Nairobi senator, "Can we agree before this committee today that we are going to terminate SHA and SHIF and face the consequences in a court or of arbitration, since it seems not to benefit the citizens, but only a few individuals?" My goodness. Some of the things that we'll be looking into today. Also making it in the headlines, why Ryla's plan on NADCO may be a pipe dream. He wants the implementation of the NADCO report to happen yesterday. Could it happen? We'll wait and see. Teen killing sets Majengo slum on fire. There was some ruckus that took place on Jogo Road yesterday because of this. The boy who was coming from Ramadan prayers died from a stray bullet after an arrest gone awry. Can eulogize Chebukati as firm and honest. Family and friends took time to remember moments shared with former IEBC boss. Stanbic to pay record dividend. We'll look into that. CT, that will make you happy. And Arab leaders Arab leaders plan to rebuild Gaza. This might make Ednah happy. Arsenal is in seventh heaven. Okay, so let's see. Sawa. All right, on to you, Anki.
That might make Ednah happy.
She's an Arsenal diehard.
All right, let's take a look at the front page of the Daily Nation. And pastor's paying for 20 million shillings Ruto gift. Furious youth believe he received the cash and should have rejected the president's donation. Who am I talking about? Jesus Winner Ministry founder Edward Mwai has dumped a phone number he has had for over 15 years after endless calls, mostly from angry youth demanding answers on a 20 million shillings donation by President William Ruto jammed his handset. His wife, Agnes, hasn't been spared abusive messages either, but the clerics insist the president never left him any money. Nothing. You're abusing him, and for no good reason, according to him. Kome top judges trump card in trial. The proposed removal of Supreme Court judges, including the Chief Justice, over alleged misconduct has taken a new twist after one of the judges asked for expansion of High Court bench hearing. Case on the back page of the Daily Nation. But also celebrating in the spirit of the Women's Week, most senior police woman retires after 38 years. More of that on page 3 of the Daily Nation. And police officers assault nation journalists. Residents of Nairobi's Majengo estate have accused police officers of running an extortion scheme and linked it to the fatal shooting of 17-year-old Ibrahim Ramadan, whose death triggered violent protests. A police officer shot Ramadan, a Form 4 student, in the head on Tuesday night, moments after he and a few friends left a nearby mosque. He died hours later in hospital. Police officers also assaulted nation journalists covering the riots yesterday. In fact, I saw some pictures of them literally deleting the footage. I don't know. We'll look at that. But of course, SHA crisis. President offers hospitals pay deal to end the crippling boycott on page 12. He said 10 million and below, get your money, and then we can do verification for those who are demanding over 10 million shillings. So that's pretty much what it looks like on the front page of the Daily Nation. But here, Pastor,
we'll look into it.
Yeah.
All right, CC headlines.
Yes, the Business Daily. Auditor flags 5 billion contingency fund withdrawal. Okay. She questioned how 5 billion to various ministries from the contingencies fund, and for contingency means something that is an emergency of sorts.
Yep.
She says some of these things that the money was allocated for are not really urgent, because that's really the nature of an emergency. It's urgent. But yes, this is her job. She looks at these things, doesn't make sense. She flags and says, this is not making sense. Please come and make sense for us so that we understand. Stanbic raises dividend 35%. Stanbic Holdings has raised its dividend payout, yani make money profit payout dividend if you are a shareholder, not if you happen to be passing by the bank, no, shareholder. 35.1% to the 8.1 billion after net profit for the year ended December 24. Money. Money. How Mauritius Bank lost 969 million in chase. Remember there was a bank called Chase Bank that tumbled and went whoop.
Yeah.
Okay. Now there is a bank in Mauritius called Afrasia Bank. It had deposited 969 million. That's like really $1 billion shillings. So when the bank did this, Afrasia's money also did this. Yeah.
Sunk in with
not good. But usually there's supposed to be mechanisms for getting this money back. And there's some insurance you sort of like take against the funds that you have, so that in the event that the bank does a tumble turn, you're able to actually get what? Your money back. CBK in talks with banks to overhaul loan pricing models. Okay. That's what I like. Commercial banks are in talks with CBK for an overhaul of their loan pricing models amid concern about the reluctance to cut interest rates. Oh, that's what they want to talk about. Okay.
Yeah.
Best of luck. How frozen forex dealer diverted clients 215 million. Okay? This guy was actually charged with defrauding clients of this amount, 215 million. And that follows, his license was suspended by the Capital Markets Authority. Who told you?
Out.
Okay. Yes, the guy goes by the name of Tosh. Can you imagine? Banks, not one bank, banks, many banks, forces Treasury to pay KQ 19 billion defaulted loan. What again?
Defaulted loan.
Okay. And this one I have to read. 8 commercial banks forced the Treasury to pay them 19.3 billion in full for unpaid loans to Kenya Airways and rejected an offer to recover the defaulted debt through a 6.5-year bond. The lenders, including Equity Bank, NCBA, Cooperative Bank, slapped Treasury with a default notice after the national carrier indicated it had no cash to settle the debt.
Okay.
We'll leave that one there. Okay. You understand? Right. The top right-hand corner, it's not Tilbury anymore. Every year, all the top organs of the Chinese Communist Party, meaning it doesn't matter which village you come from, it doesn't matter how far flung, whether you border Kathmandu, whether whether you border God knows what, you will come for this meeting every year. The top organ, meaning all the leaders come and meet, and these leaders, by the way, if you're local leaders, it's not at the it could be a mason, it could be a taxi driver, it could be a farmer, it could be a businessman, so long as you're a party leader in China. And they have a week-long meeting where they discuss this and that. Now, this and that means how the party works, what people are saying, the Wananchi is thinking once a year. Can you imagine such a situation? Once a year, the people in the secretariat, topmost organ, get to hear what the Wananchi are saying. Explains to you perhaps in part why it is that experiment of theirs is working.
It's working.
Right. Gashago and Kalonzo teams now plan joint engagements countrywide. Good for them.
Well done.
Back in the middle of the paper, officers injured in line of duty not compensated. Raw deal for cops prisons in 9 billion cover scheme. This one we have to look at. But there was also a picture of something that happened yesterday in Majengo. 17-year-old boy was shot dead, and man was there.
The chaos after that was crazy.
Yes, people were not happy with this. Police car got burnt, police house got burnt. Guys, yes. But and ostensibly, according to this story, that it was said that this guy trades in cannabis. Now, so you shoot a guy because he's selling bangi. Sure.
Not even weapons.
There's got to be a lot more.
No, these ones one usually has to look into and find what really was going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. 17-year-old.
Yes, I mean, what was going on here?
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
The young man, the victim is called Ibrahim Ramadan.
Yeah. Yes. Same one. Okay. Well, let's come back after this short break and take a look at these stories in greater detail. It's 25 minutes to 7 o'clock. Come back and looking at these stories.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with SpiceFM.
Cloudy conditions at 15 in Nairobi this morning. It's 14 and cloudy in Nakuru and 13 and cloudy in Nyeri. Clear conditions in Eldoret at 14, and Mombasa will be sunny through Thursday. Currently at 25, it's 26 and sunny in Malindi. 20 and clear into Kisumu with highs of 34, and we'll see highs of 34 in a clear Kakamega at 18. Kampala's clear at 19 with highs of 32, and into a mostly sunny Dar es Salaam at 26. It's clear at 17 in Johannesburg with mostly cloudy conditions at 25 in Mogadishu, and it's 16 and cloudy into Addis Ababa. Partly cloudy at 27 into Lagos, and at 25 it's cloudy in Kinshasa. 10 degrees and sunny into Thursday afternoon Beijing, and at 5 it's cloudy in Paris, and 5 and cloudy in London. It's 11 degrees and light rain into New York Wednesday night, coming into Thursday, highs of 12 and lows of 9.
Spice up your life.
All right, so traffic is just starting to build up different parts of the city. On the Thika Superhighway, really busy already, and that's coming in from Survey, and all the traffic that comes in before that is trickling in, but nothing at a standstill, not just yet. Traffic is flowing freely, more or less, in most areas. As you come off of Uhuru Highway, getting into the CBD out towards Westlands, be doing all right. And on the Eastern Bypass, there is some traffic that's starting to build as you get then towards North Airport Road and then out towards Cabana. So all to watch for now, not looking too bad. Keeping an eye on things as we step into traffic hour this Thursday. And we'll talk on SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, so looking into some of these stories into detail. This health thing has senators all over the place. It has members of parliament making demands. It has those who are advising the president, talking all here and there about many things. But then the big ticket thing is that it has Kenyans who are going to hospital and cannot get treatment. It has Kenyans, unfortunately, who've been turned back because hospitals are saying, well, we can't pay because the system is essentially cooked. This story is carried on page 4 of the Standard today, and we need to just look into that a little bit more in terms of details. Excuse me. The Health CS, Baraza, is at pains to explain Auditor General's Shah bombshell. And the story is saying that the Ministry of Health is facing growing scrutiny over the Social Health Authority and the Social Health Insurance Fund amid revelations that powerful individuals rather than the government control the scheme. So despite the ministry's authoritative position, its role appears to have been reduced to merely implementing directives in what is emerging as a well-crafted scheme benefiting a select few at the expense of millions of Kenyans. So yesterday, Health Cabinet Secretary Deborah Baraza seemed to rush through questions she was asked, despite calling for the press to respond to concerns raised by Kenyans. When asked about Shah's ownership, Baraza sidestepped the question. I believe the president addressed that yesterday. She said, and moved on. The controversy surrounding Shah and SHIF has escalated as health facilities continue turning away patients, citing non-payment by the government. The crisis has deepened public mistrust, with concerns that the Ministry of Health is now merely rubber stamping a process that serves private interests. So the questions now are coming out. Was it set up to benefit a few individuals? Was the system set up so that as people benefit, maybe people would, kind of make their way down the hill and get treatment here and there, and that Kenyans would forget it after some time and just pay for their health services? What really was behind all of this? It's going to form part of our Dear Mr. President conversation this morning, and really ask, Dear Mr. President, how do you look at things like this and allow them to continue in this manner? So, just going through that story in detail, and we'll come back to that later on at 9.
All right, and of course we'll also just interrogate the possibility of the president saying one thing and it actually being done. There are 10 million shillings for the particular, healthcare facilities that ought to get that, paid in that 10 million and below are supposed to get some money. And the ones who demand beyond and above 10 million, just the verification process should begin. We will interrogate that as well. But I'm looking at this story here. Remember the relationship between the state and religious institutions? This guy, Edward Mwai, founder of Jesus Winner Ministry, has dumped a phone number he has had for more than 15 years after endless calls, mostly from angry youth demanding answers on the 20 million donation pledged by President William Ruto, jammed the handset. Now, if I go a little further and quick, the abusive messages and endless calls have thrown Mr. Mwai into panic and paranoia. The man, who is also on TV screens, is now hesitant to have his photo taken during interviews. Mr. Mwai cites privacy reasons, but points out that he is worried about the story to be written after the interview, but he resigns to fate and leaves everything to God. Why is this happening? Look, there are a number of things written here in numbers and values in years. This is not the first one. 20 million is just the amount President William Ruto pledged to donate to Jesus Winner Ministry on Sunday. But there's 100 million, the amount President Ruto promised to rally his friends to donate for the church. 5 million shillings, what former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua once gave to Pastor Edward Mwai. 1 billion shillings, the tentative value of the church and jewel complex. That's around somewhere in Roysambu. When you get to the Thika Road Mall, just adjacent. Yeah, there's a jewel complex. 85 million shillings. What Mr. Mwai says Kasarani Mall Limited used to buy the 20 acres in Kasarani from Solio Construction Company Limited. And in 2019, when KDF took control of the land to be bought by Mr. Mwai. So there's some long life relationship between Mr. Mwai and the political class. Well, this is pretty much what it is now. People are angry about it. We've been talking about double speak. President William Ruto, do not do this. Do not bribe, if bribe is the word, or gift the church. Yeah. But now here, Mr. Mwai is taking center stage with lots and lots of money in a historical way. I don't know how that's going to end. Anyway, he's thrown away that phone number for his safety.
But this bribe conversation, when you bribe, there's something you're hoping to get. You're hoping to induce someone.
Yeah. Yes, and
so
for this...
What would he be inducing the pastor?
For this, he's being accused of... The pastor admits that he leads a vulnerable congregation, but dismisses widespread reports that the constitution of his church has made it a playground for politicians looking to manipulate voters into keeping them in office.
Okay.
The bribe.
Oh, so that's the bribe. You come and build a church which belongs to Mwai, but the people who attend church as worshippers now will vote for you.
I still don't see it.
Okay.
He has denied them. That's just what,
if this particular pastor was one of these pastors who can book you a direct entry into heaven, then I would understand.
Yeah, if the guy who says, you want to go to heaven?
Look, I can
talk to you. I know a guy.
I know a guy who knows a guy. We can jump the queue.
No, but he can look at you sitting like this and see your future.
Let him see his own future. It usually helps. Okay? Because that future, another human being knowing the future.
And your past, without you telling him.
No, past.
Until you go and reconcile with your...
Past you can know.
Okay.
Yeah, because there are many people you know over time, and they will know things about you. So possibly future.
How you will go to America.
Prophecies by their very nature are specific.
Okay.
They are situational. It's not as though There are people who every day they wake up, they prophesy. What are they prophesying? Life has to go on. A prophecy comes to meet a need.
Yeah.
That's how prophecies work. Yes. At a specific time, it's a specific place for a specific situation. Yes, so anyway, I still don't understand, because if the president says he gave 20 million...
Pledge.
Let me just say, it doesn't really matter. If you ask me, what matters is this. We had understood that this matter of Harambes had ceased. If we didn't understand that, then whatever amount he gives would have been of no issue. But if that had been the pronouncement, and yet this, no matter how you look at it, is a donation. A donation is a Harambe.
Well, according to the president, it's just a, how do you call it, giving to God. And he said it's different. Harambe, when giving to God, it's
money that
he's
is
yet to find the
given
verse,
to
though.
church
Is given to God.
is given to God. Money that is given to a mosque is given to God. Money that is given to a temple is given to the number of gods that that particular temple believes exist. That's how it works. And all these institutions have somebody who looks after that particular institution. And they are called... whatever it is that they are called. Yes. So, the issue in my mind is not the money or the pledge. No. If it was said that no Harambes, a donation is a Harambe. That is my interpretation.
Indeed.
Okay.
Yes.
It is. You're raising money for something. It's not all Harambe. It's coming together to put something together.
Yes.
But is it that he's not listening, or he's just... Because Kenyans have called him out on this severally. But
Well, I mean, it's very clear. I think he's listening, he's hearing, but his trajectory is somewhere else. And he said that, you know, I'm not going to listen to anybody who says that it's a bad thing to give money to God. He did. He said it. Yeah. He's going to, if he feels that, you know, it's being given to God, then there's nothing wrong with that.
So now the youth are just on you, the receiver.
Well,
Give
the
it
thing
back.
is this. Kenyans are clear about this. If we are members of this church and money was given, or so they think, so they want their share. We're members of this church.
They want their own, of course. Of course.
Where is our share?
It's going to be interesting times ahead because, like I said, we're in political silly season already. And if we're going to see this continued thing, it's, if you ask me, watch any cemetery in Itoke.
Allah.
There is a certain kind of, there's something, what are those hormones called? Dopamine and those other ones.
Which do what?
Yeah, so that we know.
A feeling of a high.
Adrenaline?
The feel-good factor.
Feel-good factor. That when you feel as though you have helped somebody and you see that it has been well received or well accepted, it does something for you. It boosts you. Whether you are somebody who's given a loaf of bread to a child, or whether you're a president who has given 120 million to a church, or even pledged to do the same. And when you see that you have been accepted by these people, you know that, okay, I mean, they're good books, and that when it comes to them making a decision about whether I will be in this position again, the likelihood of them choosing me is greater because of this thing that I have done. We can academize it, we can philosophize it, we can do whatever we want, but at the end of the day, I see these pledges that are being made essentially is to buy favor in the future or in the present.
Favor.
We can talk about all these things about giving God money and giving God and building his church and his house, but no, the giver is the one who is going to be remembered in the future for favor. And that's why people do the things that they do.
Imekutoka.
No, but she is right, because even, you see, you can do something out of the goodness of your heart.
You can.
Yes.
But there's always the understanding that giving has positive consequences. That's all I'm going to say on that subject.
Yeah.
It does.
Give and it will come back to you. Good measures, pressed down, shaken together, and running over.
Well,
somebody read the Bible this morning. Yes. Or maybe it was yesterday and they remembered it today.
Good stuff.
Dopamine is what you're referring to.
Thanks, please.
Okay, and then there's serotonin. And then there's endorphin.
Bas.
Yeah, all these things.
Makes you feel nice. It does.
You know, when you walk, exercise, and you not feel good.
Yeah.
That's endorphin. You're feeling good. That one.
To put your story, Bas.
Oh, right. There's this story bang in the middle of this particular paper called The Star. The raw deal for police and prisons officers in 9 billion cover plan. What is this? This is the police insurance scheme, okay? An audit has shown, audit again by who? Auditor General. Yes, that this scheme, according to the Auditor General, or according to this report rather, doesn't work. The officers are left to struggle accessing compensation and other benefits despite the insurer receiving billions of taxpayers' money. Insurer given money. Service not provided. The cover was to provide comprehensive medical care, life insurance, comprehensive for injuries sustained in line of duty, and benefits in case an officer dies. Okay? 8.6 billion is a ton of money.
It is.
It is almost an obscene amount of money. This, however, has not been the case according to a damning report by Auditor General Nancy Kadhungu. This report reveals that officers who sustain injuries in line of duty are not compensated despite their being provided for in the deal. This is what this headline is saying. Now, if this is as reported, then this is a problem.
Big time.
This is a very big problem because for heaven's sake, when you're in the security service, you are always in line of danger. There's always something. It doesn't happen every day, but the likelihood is higher than everybody else's. Okay? Now, you've gone and gotten this covered. You've been told you've been covered. So if you get injured, ce n'est pas problem. Yeah, your family taken care of.
Yeah.
And then you suddenly forget getting there. You are injured, you need to have help. And suddenly this insurance cover isn't working. Now, this insurance cover is not part of she. No, it's not that. It's not. This was a cover that was taken. So you have to ask, who was the brains behind this particular insurance cover?
You have to ask.
Okay?
And what was the intent?
Yes, exactly. I'm trying to look to see the insurer. Okay?
Would really like to know.
I'm not seeing.
Okay.
Yes. No, I'm looking. I've looked. I would really like to know. I'm going to follow this story because I'm going to talk about it tomorrow again.
Okay.
But the policemen in this country, where?
What about them?
The journey. Their housing was a problem. At the time their wives were out, on media, just speaking on their welfare, their mental health, the space they are in financially. I mean, man, we need to respect the forces, especially the police.
I think the underlying issue in all of this is that it is understood that their welfare needs to be handled. It is understood that they work in a high-risk sector and that you should take care of them. Now, for the Auditor General to come out and flag that particular funds that were meant to be used for this then were not, or that there's a question mark on that should do something to your conscience. It should do something to you to ask. And then I start to get really heavy of mind when I look at all of these things. She's coming to talk about, and she's reporting on monies that should have been geared towards development, essentially that then ring fence the citizenry. It is not happening. Let me give you another story that might even dampen your spirits a little bit more. Questionable 73 billion shillings in the budget. Treasury is admitting now.
73B.
Yes, please. The Treasury has finally admitted that questionable 73 billion shillings was included in the budget policy statement that was submitted to the National Assembly. In a letter dated February 25th, sent to the National Assembly, the National Treasury has sought to amend the budget documents by reducing 73 billion.
And then, where did the 73 billion go?
Exactly. Because how is it in the budget? Then later you come and say, actually, you know what? It was not in the budget. No. It doesn't work like that. You can't just come and say, actually, you know what? It's just a line. It was a mistake. We remove it. But before it was there, then because remember, you budget and then you appropriate.
Yes.
Okay? So after appropriation is when you realize that actually, you know what? That was a line mistake. Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Badi explains that the 73 billion shillings was on account of the social health. You see, they've come again. The Social Health Insurance Fund, which was included in the ministerial expenditure under the State Department of Medical Services. However, the said amount is not included in the fiscal framework, thus causing the difference between 4.336 trillion and 4.263 trillion, reads the letter. The document tabled before the House by the National Treasury stated that the projected expenditure under the fiscal framework amount was that and not the other. The projected expenditure at the budget was now 4.36 trillion. Now, do you see what that does? That when you budget a certain amount, you then appropriate based on that budget. right? Now, if you come later and tell us, actually, you know what, that line item was not supposed to be there, but you have already appropriated for it and you said this is where we're going to get it from, then you want to come and remove it later. So then, where did 73 billion just disappear to? Poof!
Where did it go?
That's the thing. And then, just come and tell us, oh, then it went. Okay, 73 billion. And I want to link that these numbers we're just tossing about like they don't matter. 73 billion, 286 billion, something billion, 120 million. And I'm going to point on a comment here that Ahmed has made.
Yes.
And he's been actually talking about this thing the whole week. We have children in this country who are going to school. Under the sweltering heat, they are seated on stones, supposed to learn. Then you want to present them for an assessment in grade 3. You want to present them for an assessment in grade 6. You want to present them for yet another assessment in grade 9. They're under the sweltering heat. Their roof is a tree in Kenya in 2025 today. If that doesn't prick your conscience, if that doesn't make you say that we cannot allow a penny to be lost, then we are in a worse situation than I ever imagined. If you see these monies flying about and you are not bothered as per where they're going and what they should actually do, that you should wake up one morning and instead of going to church, which already is 1 billion shillings in value, how about you take a walk down the road and build a school for these children who already are disadvantaged, but then they have to work under those difficult situations to get an education, which is their right as citizens.
Is their right.
There's a lot of work to be done, and most of it is inward.
Do you know what hurts me more? Page 9 of, and I believe this is the Standard. I'm just going to connect it with what you've said, let alone them sitting down on the stone. There's a report here that Kenya is among nations with alarming hunger levels. Kenya is among the 42 countries with alarming hunger levels, according to the Global Hunger Index. The report released Tuesday in Nairobi has been tracking long-term trends in hunger at global, regional, and national levels since 2006. We had that conversation here on that particular matter, and I just want to look at how many Kenyans today are going to go out in the scorching sun to hustle bustle, but probably didn't eat last night. They're looking forward to grabbing something, maybe akagumu hapa kule, and just go along with their day. It's not like when you look at Kenyans looking. You remember when they said there's a hidden hunger? Like, and exactly, I could be sitting here, but sijakula. And maybe I didn't mekula, but I'm dying slowly because of the nutrition. And looking at this, we are in an alarming state that makes it even more serious than just donating whatever amount of money to whoever. I mean, let us really, really look at things that matter: education, health, and security. It's alarming, even in homes, not just on paper.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Siti, you want to share one story with us quickly?
No, I'm just going to beef up what I was talking about earlier on.
Yes.
The Star gave some statistics. It said the insurer has not settled 509 work injury benefits. Okay? It has not settled 2 when people die, the insurance that when you die, there's some money that goes to your family. Okay? Insurer has not paid 21 claims worth 43,459,800. Okay? There is not settled 262. These are again injury claims. 200 million ex gratia claims not accounted for. Now this is not a pretty picture. Where did the 8.6 billion shillings go? We know very well that money doesn't work. Somebody has to enable it to work. And where did it walk to?
There's a lot of it just walking.
Deep breath is important.
It is very necessary. When you look at a lot of things that are happening at the moment, you just need to actually take a breath. A lot of work needs to be done, and I'm going to insist that it has to be inward. It is inward work. That when the inside is sorted out, the outside is just really that you can now figure out really quickly and get along the way. That we cannot be in a situation year after year, time after time, where people continue to suffer. Development is, not above board, and we expect that things will be okay. It's difficult. It's difficult to grasp, but you just have to be on top. And I keep saying Kenyans are very resilient people, very resilient, and will keep taking blow by blow by blow, and still trying to remain on top. We have to see how this all, pans out. We're going to have the Cabinet Secretary, Lee Kinyanjui, as our guest into the next hour at 7 o'clock. He is the Cabinet Secretary for Investments, Trade and Industry, and he joins us in the hot seat at 7. Good morning. 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the News Wire. I'm La Ubaga. The opposition is expected to cede ground for an ODM member with at least 5 chairperson slots and 4 vice chairperson positions in parliamentary committees. In what appears to be a further crackdown on the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagwa's allies, Kenya Kwanza has removed them from the positions. In the changes, Embakasi North MP James Gakuya was removed from being a chairperson of the Trade Committee, while his Githunguri counterpart Gathoni Wamuchomba was removed from chairing the Constitution Implementation Oversight Committee. Similarly, Kirinyaga woman representative Jane Jerry also lost her seat.
We didn't look at this, what people could imagine, perhaps that, political pronunciations outside there, political persuasions. There are so many factors to look at when you're coming up with even a single name. When you pull one, you affect the other. There is a question of regional balance. There is a question of gender. There is a question of experience. There is a question of party politics. There is a question of coalitions.
Although he has maintained his membership of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, Kiharu MP Ndindi Nyoro, who has been breathing hot and cold since the impeachment of former DP Gachagua in the looming changes, Lego Usonga MP Sam Atandi is set to take over the Budget Committee chair role. Ekolomani MP Bernard Shinali is warming up for the Trade Committee chairperson seat formerly occupied by Gakuya. Kilifi South legislator Ken Chonga is set for the Labour Committee, taking over the reins from Karemba, while nominated MP Irene Mayaka will take charge of the Regional Integration Committee as Seme MP Dr. James Nikal prepares to assume the chairmanship of the Health Committee.
I have been a member of this committee and I cannot remove in the manner in which you want to remove me. However powerful you might be, Mr. Speaker, it is not correct.
Go and do those things in the County Assembly of Kajiado, not in the National Assembly. Spend your time in the National Assembly discussing matters of greater importance to the people of Kajiado.
The election of the chairpersons of the committees is expected to begin today and conclude Wednesday next week. A total of 1,356 Kenyans have been shortlisted for the positions of chairperson and members of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Chairperson of the selection panel for the recruitment of IBC nominees, Nelson Makanda, says 37 individuals have been shortlisted for the position of chairperson, while another 1,319 have been shortlisted for the member positions. The 37 individuals shortlisted for the chairperson position comprise 6 women and 31 men. 3 of the candidates are persons living with disabilities. The panel initially advertised for the positions after it was appointed on January 27th by President William Ruto via a Gazette notice, receiving 1,848 applications, with the application period closing on February 15th. The family of Gilbert Kinyua, a patient who was brutally murdered inside a ward at the Kenyatta National Hospital, may have to wait even longer for answers on what transpired. Desperate for justice, Kinyua's family has been moving from office to office seeking the truth about their loved one's killing. So far, with no clear leads, they now suspect foul play in the stalled investigations. Kinyua's wife, Susan Wanjiku, says for over a month now, there is nothing from the hospital or the DCI which is comforting.
Tuliambiwa tugoje, kuna simu tutapata kutoka kwa Kenyatta National Hospital wakituguide venye tutaendelea kutoka hapo, na tumegojea kutoka Friday, wakatuambia tuwape mpaka Monday, ambapo Monday tuligojea simu mpaka jioni, hakuna simu tulipokea. Mimi mwenyewe nikachukua simu nikawapigia, wakaniambia hakuna any report wamepata kutoka kwa DCI. Tujui tufanye nini kama familia, na justice bado hatujapata, na hatuwezi zika Gilbert Kenywa kama justice yake hatujapata.
Kenya's life was cut short in the most unimaginable way inside a hospital ward where he had sought treatment, a placement for healing, not harm. For now, Kenya's family prepares to lay him to rest in Mkurueni, still haunted by the fear that justice may never come. That's the news wire. I'm Lea Ubaga.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
Thursday morning, and a little bit of traffic that's starting to build in different parts of the city, but it looks really busy coming off the thicker superhighway. Not just looks, but it is. As you come in from Garden City, it's going to clog up as you just pass the Allsops Junction and then out towards Survey. There's quite some traffic here. Getting into the CBD, you're not going to do too badly as you come off of Mombasa Road, at least not for now. There is some traffic that's starting to build on Langata Road as you get out then towards the Nyaya Stadium roundabout. It'll ease off. Huru Highway then is not bad getting into the city either, but we're seeing some of that also come off of Waiyaki Way. A little bit of traffic starting to build. We're not yet in traffic hour. Let's see what happens when we do. But let's keep ourselves informed and keep things moving this morning. SpiceFM KE on X. Hashtag the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It is 6 minutes after 7 o'clock into the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this morning, and getting into ones that matter. And our live streams are up for folks who've just clicked in this morning. YouTube, Facebook, and on X, and on radio around the country. Also say welcome to our audience on KTN. And as we get into a very, in my opinion, very important conversation in terms of what needs to happen for nations, not just here on the continent, but what nations have done around the world. And before we get into that, CT, drop it like it's hot.
Okay, I suspect you're referring to the proverb here.
No, not that one. I'm actually talking about the diamonds where you talked to us about.
I knew that's what you're talking about.
You did.
I just wanted to ensure.
The other thing that you'll drop like it's hot, I'll tell you in a minute.
People look forward to owning their own houses, and they're often daunted by just the prospects. The prospects here are the amounts that houses cost, and very few people will have that entire amount in one fell swoop. So you need assistance. Now, Diamond Trust Bank are saying, look, we can provide that assistance if you talk to us physically, come to any of our branches and chat with us. If you email us at mortgages@dtbafrica.com, we will respond and we will talk to you. Now, what are they going to talk to you about? One, they're going to tell you that they have a mortgage plan, which can be worked around so that it suits your need and it suits your means. That's one. They're also saying that this mortgage will have a fixed interest rate at 9% if the mortgage is for 9 years. If it's for 25 years, 9.75%. They're also saying, look, there's a little cherry on top of this thing. We do not have any hidden costs. Neither will we penalize you if you pay ahead of the schedule.
Right.
And they're saying, look, these things only look difficult and impossible before you've had a little chat with us. So why don't you come and have a chat? And they're saying it doesn't matter whether you are self-employed, whether you are employed or you're in the diaspora. You can qualify for a loan of up to 105% if you're employed. If you're in the diaspora, for a loan of up to 80% of what it is that you need. But All these things are possible if you start the journey of having a conversation with the Diamond Trust Bank so that they can explain to you in greater details and you can talk to them and the two of you can come to an understanding of what it is that is possible for you. Hopefully that the need you have for owning a house will be met.
Indeed.
Yes.
Fantastic stuff. I told you were dropping it like it's hot. I'll give you an opportunity to do that again in just a bit. He was the former governor of Nakuru County. Rather, he is a former governor of Nakuru County, and today sits as the Cabinet Secretary for Investments, Trade and Industry. Lee Kinyanjui is our guest this hour, and he is in the hot seat. Waziri, good morning.
Morning, and glad to be here this morning.
Good to have you here.
Thank you.
The last time you sat in that seat, you sat in a different capacity. Today you sit in one that I think is fundamental to what then drives an economy that could essentially push it forward in terms of development. And that forms the basis of the conversation that we'll be having today about what Kenya can actually do to lift itself and push itself forward. So I'm already excited, as you can tell. But before we get there, CT goes around the continent every week, as you know. And he's in a different country this week, and he's going to share the proverb with you. And then you can tell us how you would interpret that.
Well, we are in the Republic of Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso is many things. But the thing that I find most pertinent about Burkina Faso, it is the tragic reality of Burkina Faso. This is a country that forms part of what people refer to in West Africa as the coup belt. Meaning, it's like for every stone you throw, you'll probably hit around 2 or 3 countries that have had a coup in the not too distant past. But they, from the time of independence, they've had one coup after another, after another, after another. That is the country. But this is a wealthy country. Wealthy country. And yet, despite all the mineral wealth and the agricultural wealth, it's one of the poorest countries on the planet.
Right.
Anyway, the proverb. Those who seek revenge must remember to dig 2 graves.
Revenge, more often than not, will have 2 casualties. Both the one pursuing and the one being pursued. So the outcomes would have both victims fall into the grave.
Okay. Very true indeed.
Profound.
No, yes, it is. It's those who seek revenge never look at it that way. That's the whole point.
Indeed.
Yes, they think they're the ones who will receive whatever gratification they hope to receive from the revenge they seek.
Rarely happens that way.
No, it doesn't.
Right.
Not quite. Yes.
So yes, Karibu again, and as we get into this conversation, you took on just a short while ago this position as the Cabinet Secretary, and specifically for Investments, Trade and Industry, a big ministry. And on which sits the shoulders for very many things when it comes to economic development in the nation. And we're looking at enhancing sustainability. But let's start from the question of, has Kenya achieved economic stability? Before we talk about enhancing it, has Kenya actually achieved economic stability?
Thank you. And once again, my appreciation for being here today. I think it's good to look at stability maybe in the context of post-COVID. Nations across the world were greatly affected by the COVID problem. Because, there was a disruption of almost anything from tourism to aviation, production, and everything. And I think the last 3-4 years have actually been the recovery years. But we can confidently say from where we were during COVID, this is in respect to the whole world, I think we can say we have fully recovered. But there are still huge challenges that we continue to experience as a nation. And I think this really is a focus of our ministry. First is to note that the levers upon which a nation can lift itself from poverty, from debt, are all within the trade docket. And that's why you have seen in the United States, in the first few years of President Trump's entry, his conversation is all about tariffs. Tariffs with this country, tariffs with that country. Those are the levers within the trade space. So I think also it is a great lesson that we all learn. In fact, if you look at, is either you put the right tariffs to attract businesses and stop imports, or you tax your people. So more often than not, nations are focused more on taxing their people than on how to use the tariff lever to ensure that they prevent unnecessary goods from coming. And you know too well, we've had toothpicks, all these manner of things coming into the country. And as a result of that, you have fewer jobs and you get more unemployment in the country. So I think the main issue is how we can use trade to lift the country from unemployment, from poverty, how we can pay our debt as a result of using those levers. But indeed, it is true that if you look at the Kenyan shilling, for example, is at 129 now, and it's been there for the last maybe 4-5 months.
Holding strong.
Yeah, and the important thing about a currency is not just where it is, but the stability. So importers don't want today you're going to buy at this price, in 2 months you're here. So I think the fact that our currency has held there for the last 5-6 months, I think it's something we really need to be careful and be happy, because it's a stabilizing factor in the economy. The other issue is interest rates. You recall that our interest rates had gone to the level of 18-16 since the CBK lowered its CBR rate. Banks are coming down, not at the pace we would want them to come, because when the CBR rate was increased, when the interests were going up, they responded immediately. But when it is coming down, there are all manner of excuses that have continued to persist. But our belief is that in the next 6 months, the banks will follow suit, and maybe we should be looking at a region of maybe 12 to 13%, maybe in by September or thereabout. But I think this is good news for businesses, because when interest rates are very high, then debt becomes unsustainable, and you cannot talk of business without debt.
Right. So if we jump right into it, we're looking at why local production would be one of the drivers of economic stability, or towards the enhancement of economic stability. But when we talk about local production, where the private sector would essentially be, one of those levers, and probably a big one of those levers, then the environment made conducive for these businesses to operate towards local production is extremely important. So what is that outlook right now in terms of supporting local businesses towards local production, when we say that would be one of the ways to enhance economic stability?
Thank you. Maybe some background would be useful in understanding maybe where Kenya, even African countries, all fall in this. I think if you recall, in the colonial days, we had a solution to almost everything. Food, you didn't need to go to the supermarket, clothing and all that. But along the way, the advent of colonialism kind of destroyed the entire solution that the Africans had for themselves. And therefore, anything you wanted, you had to go to the market. Now, the source of these products was not Kenya, was not local for that matter. And long after the end of colonialism, that legacy still lives on. That for breakfast, you need cereals, you need wheat, much of it is imported, you need clothes. So we really are in a system that is so dependent, and that creates a deficit situation. Because if for every solution from food to clothing to healthcare is, foreign oriented, then it means you'll forever be in debt. And I think therefore it is the responsibility of nations and governments to try and reverse that equation, so that in every aspect, if you're thinking of food, how do we get to self-sustainable levels? Kenya imports nearly 90% of its wheat. Yet in areas of Nakuru, Eldoret, and Nanyuki, we are barely doing 30-40% of our capacity. Why can't we explore the other 40 so that we reduce the imports? The weather is right, climate is right. Why are we not doing these things?
Why aren't we? If I may jump in and ask, what's the reason why?
I think it's a long conversation.
Let's do it.
But to me, the point is, as long as, even before we go to exporting other things, we already have a a kitchen deficit. Your food, you can't meet your food needs. So you'll find that of our big imports, largely food is one of the items. So I think the first conversation we're having, including with agriculture, is how can we make sure that we don't import our food. Now, part of the challenge we've had with food, including wheat recently, you know that farmers in Kenya are probably the only community that will put their money on a product whose value they don't know. Person running a hotel knows a cup of tea is 100 shillings.
Yeah.
So if I make 10, I know what to get. But a farmer who is planting maize has no idea how he's going to sell the maize. It could be 2,000, it could be 3, it could be 4, it could be 5. So there's a lot of casino business in agriculture. So we have to reduce that risk in agriculture so that now farmers can say, I can produce 20 bags per acre, I have 20 acres, they can go to the bank and get finance. That is one thing. So we're trying to work on the possibility of looking at the cost structure and possibly giving them a number that they can work with. Because even if you're a bank today and a farmer says they want to be lend money and you don't know how much they will sell, whether it will be below cost, above cost, or super profit, you have no idea. And what this has tended to do is that now farmers, because they're expecting the price will be better tomorrow or the other week, they tend to hoard their wheat, their maize. In the process of hoarding, you have higher post-harvest losses. So we are dealing with an area that requires a lot of attention. But in short, before we even do anything else, we must work on our food security, because that is where our biggest bill goes. And as we seek to service our debts and all that, if you have to service your debt and at the same time import maize, import wheat and all the others, then that's a nation that has already a red dashboard, and we need to clear that. The other issue is in the area of clothing. And maybe before we get to that, it's good to say, in areas like edible oil, Kenya imports 90% of edible oil. Or edible oil by any other name is really like mnazi, what you have at the coast.
Yes.
Sunflower. They all can grow very well here. But you're importing 90%. Compare that with our neighbors in the region. Tanzania is importing 60%. Uganda is importing 55%. So Kenya is at 90. The most industrialized nation within the region is the one that is the biggest importer. And our agriculture, our soils, our agroecological zones, whether it's Homa Bay, Kitale, all those are sunflower growing areas. Yet we have continued to import. Now, the bigger problem is this. Animal feeds are made from sunflower, canola, and all this.
Yes.
So the moment you stop growing, there are also other bigger problems that come along the way, that your animal feeds also becomes expensive. So
when I see us, I'm just following your train of thought and how you're bringing out this conversation. I'm looking at 1974. I don't know if you read the book by Ali Mazrui, lamenting about the paradox that you're actually referring to, that we have certain raw materials, we export them, people actually make them, these products, and we import them back to the country in a more expensive way. Is this the same paradox that we're seeing that is now affecting our industry right now?
Yeah, that's
that you're referring to.
That's where we are.
Okay.
And I think it's an African problem, but every country must solve its problem its way. And it's for that reason that we'll say, for example, cocoa may be grown in Ghana, but there's no chocolate from Ghana.
Okay.
Those the chocolate we know is from Switzerland and all those places. So the finished product, the Lipton teas of the world are from, say, other big countries, but not from Kenya. So I think this is really the paradox that we want to deal with. But I think what we must realize is that the moment you don't produce your own edible oils, vegetables, then it means you also cannot produce your animal feeds. You don't have enough input. Therefore, your cost of feeds to your animal, chicken, pork, and all those, therefore becomes difficult and therefore uncompetitive in the market. So I think there are certain levers we're going to apply in the coming days. First is to reduce imports on edible oils and create a mechanism where farmers will have to be contracted by the processors, so that now we transit from the 90% import that you're having to maybe something, maybe in year one, maybe up to 70, then gradually in the next 4 or 5 years, we can come to the range of 20 or 30%. And those who want to have edible oil made from palm oil can do so by choice. But right now, it's not by choice. It is 90%. That's what's in the market. It's a lazy way of solving our problems, which we have done for so long, but the consequences are huge.
Yeah.
And that's why you hear people talk of cheap eggs coming from Uganda. You know, the chicken is a chicken, but the difference is what you feed into that chicken.
Okay. So yes, we have diagnosed a problem forever. That this conversation that we're having now in terms of what needs to happen, what should happen, who needs to put in particular inputs, is not new in terms of a diagnosis. There are people who have come before you who have diagnosed this exact problem and said, this is what we need to do. There seems to be a disconnect between the diagnosis and the treatment in terms of, okay, move from the doctor's office, go to the lab, come back with the results, and now go to pharmacy for treatment. There's a lag. Because if we're going to talk about this edible oil story, for example, and say, let's start to look into the growth and harvest of palm trees, it takes 3 to 4 years for you to recognize the fruit from a palm tree, right? Now, once you harvest that and you now start to create your oil, it takes you a month or so, 3 months. But it takes 3 to 4 years. What that tells me is that if in the last administration, for example, the person who was in your position and that whole mechanism, if we were serious about this, that we would have already been able to realize a harvest of palm trees in Kenya, whereby we would actually start to produce oil. 3 to 4 years. It would have happened already. But it doesn't seem to happen. What's the problem between the diagnosis and the treatment?
I think first, palm oil is just one. I mean, you don't necessarily have to grow that.
As an example.
If you go for canola and sunflower, they take 4 months.
Exactly.
We don't need to go. But I want to confirm, in some parts of Nyanza today, sunflower is being grown, crushed, and oil extracted at a cottage level. So it's already happening in a small way. But I think also the fact that, inefficiency in a system sometimes, or shall I say, often benefits somebody. What the Kenya may be losing may be a benefit to a person or a group of people. Now, this group of people sometimes are so powerful, they can completely disable a system. So I think it's good for us to agree, even as we push this, we need goodwill. Right away from the county all the way to the top. But to realize that the process of transition sometimes may be, may have a bit of casualties, but eventually that is the best thing for the nation. I have said within the region, we are the biggest importers of palm oil, which is embarrassing. And I think these are statistics that anybody can counter-check, that after importation of petroleum products, our next product is palm oil, which can be done here. Those that we can substitute, we must do it. And I think for me, from where I sit, I know it is possible. I think all we need is to have the resolve as a nation to agree between benefiting a few who are importers, who want the easy solution, and the hundreds and thousands of farmers back there, and saving our currency, the forex that would go out. What should come first? I think that's the conversation we need to have. And part of this is a public awareness that some of these forums create for the people to understand the implications of their actions.
You know, in the previous century, somewhat towards the end of it, the Ministry of Finance actually, in conjunction with the Ministry of Agriculture, actually did send people to Malaysia to study their palm oil industry. And they did go. And they did come with the report. And some of what they learned was even piloted in some places, like, say, the coast. So it wasn't a visit or a fact-finding mission that went sort of like astray. But that's just about it. Now, fully grown, that palm oil will continue being harvested for probably up to 30 years. Okay? Which means from the time they went, had that process started, the discussion we're having here would be a completely different one. Sunflower, for those of us who were born in the previous century, again, this story has been with us for the longest time, and people actually started growing sunflower. The problem was, you grow the sunflower, then what? It looks like it's the same story with many industries that we have. You had Kikomi that was supposed to address the need for us to manufacture our own fabric. But you have to have cotton being grown. Cotton was grown. That thing died and the story just sort of like evaporated. What I'm leading to is, somewhere in some of our shelves are all these findings on the way forward and detailed with the anticipated outcome. You're right, Waziri, when you say that people benefit. The other day we're looking at a headline here where a large number of people who process wheat had actually imported wheat into the country. And yet, local farmers and their wares had not been bought. So essentially, the farmers were complaining and saying, our wheat is sitting here and it looks like we're going to experience a very huge loss. But wheat had been imported. It's a story we've heard about sugar. It's a story we've heard about maize. It's a story we hear. And those who are farmers, I speak as somebody who once farmed sugarcane. I no longer farm sugarcane. I stopped completely and uprooted the sugarcane. And grass grows on that piece of land. Yeah.
Sugarcane is grass. But anyway,
the smaller grass. Actually,
the one without the
grass.
cane.
The one without the cane, yeah. You see, I'm saying this because your task is a difficult one. It's difficult because knowing just how passionate, if I may use that term, Kenyans are about looking for solutions and documenting them. But somewhere along the line, the question to us comes into force. That next step, we do take the next step. We do. And we even pilot. Then what happens?
Yeah, but I think it's good to also know that a lot of these countries sometimes we quote actually benchmarked with us at independence. Even the housing model, the NHF in some of those countries, including Malaysia and Singapore. Really remember, these are the countries that we are at the same level with at that time. But I think one of the biggest problems we need to realize that is really a governance issue. Because Uganda already is planted the palm oil. That's why they are able to reduce their imports.
Yes, because they have local production.
They have encouraged local.
Yes.
So, but I think for me now, they have been around for maybe about 2 months, and maybe the proposal we are coming up with is very simple. Reduce the volume of imports so that you create demand for local. So that now the processors can come to the village and say, who is growing sunflower? Can we be able to contract you? And as long as we now, as government, can be able to say that we will systematically reduce our imports by this volume at this time for the next 5 years, we want to be here. Then now the processors have to go now back to the farmers and contract them, just like EABL contracts barley farmers because they want to make their beer. That's now the connection that we want to do, so that a farmer does not grow sunflower hoping somebody will come around, and that's the risking in agriculture that has become so serious that really for you to go to agriculture, you must be a high risk taker. So we want to de-risk that, encourage contract farming, encourage structured, so that also the processors, today they are not told import, tomorrow they can't import. Give a 5-year plan. And this 5-year plan would include numbers and volumes and areas where what can grow. And therefore, large commercial plantations, including Galana Kulal, we can give maybe 10,000 acres to somebody who wants to come and do sunflower or any other product that would replace that. I think that's a conversation we need to have. But I think from where I sit, the option of doing nothing does not exist. Kenya has a huge debt in the next 2-3 years. We need to pay huge debts.
117
Where will the money
billion
come
shillings.
from?
117 billion shillings.
Where will the money come from?
Let me ask the question.
Yes.
How then do we encourage investors? Because the farmers need a place to take their sunflower. Since we're talking about sunflower, okay? Somebody needs to have a plant that knows, or someone needs to have a plant that will be able to process the sunflower. The somebody does not necessarily have to be a Kenyan, and if they are still investors.
Yeah.
What will the government do to encourage such people? Because so that someone understands, yes, there is land, this thing takes 4 months. So if I put up my plant, within 4 months of putting up my plant, I know that I will be rolling off this production.
Yeah.
Because the government has to provide incentives for people to want to be able to invest.
Thank you.
And maybe also just to add, you had a particular interest in the Middle East.
Yes.
You could also rope that in, perhaps.
Very good. So I think the first thing, government is to provide policy. Actually, what has come out very clearly, not just in Kenya but across the world, is that private sector wants to know where does government want to go?
Sure.
How do we align?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the biggest problems we've had sometimes, you say you want to go here, then tomorrow you change, then already investment has been made in that area, therefore it becomes a bit of a waste. Mm-hmm. So what we are trying to create is like a 4-5 year plan that we can now share with the private sector. This is what we want to do. We want to systematically reduce, for example, import in tiles. When you're building a house, you require the tiles. Mm-hmm. So we slapped a ban or taxes on imported, and we have seen local production go up. Mm-hmm. So what we now want to do is to improve on quality. And if you from between Kitengela and Namanga, there's a very, very, very huge industry that has come that is actually serving the whole of East Africa. Mm-hmm. And we want to see more of those in Kitale, Nakuru, and other places.
Which industry is this?
Tiles. Making tiles for houses. Mm-hmm. And this has come because we have increased tax on imported tiles. So what we want to do is have many of those. So government makes statements and does a follow through and ensures that within the next 3-4 years we are consistent. So with respect to what incentives we are giving, first, if you are guaranteed of the market, if for example we consume X quantity of palm oil, and we are saying that we are going to reduce importation systematically by 20% every year. It means you are assured of a market.
Indeed.
That whatever you grow is one.
That is inadequate incentive.
The second one is taxation. Taxation, when you're importing machinery, there are incentives along that way.
Right.
Yes. Including also availing financing for industry. Because I think this is something we must say, that if you want to set up an industry, the return on investment cannot be your typical 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's not possible. Finance for industry is long term. It's 10 years, it's 20 years. And it is for that reason that you find a lot of the indigenous people cannot get into that space. Okay. Because the finance available is short term, yet what you require is long-term finance. And the government is looking at ways in which we can raise money that would avail funding for 10 years, for 15 years, and also industry specific.
There would be low-hanging fruit, and I want to take a break and come back and look at some of that low-hanging fruit that could actually bring in some of this funding that government is looking for, that other nations have been able to do. We'll come back and talk about that when we take a quick look at weather and traffic. The Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry, Lee Kinyanjui, is our guest this hour. We'll be back as we look at local production and how it can enhance economic stability. Don't go away. Back after this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with SpiceFM.
15 and sunny in Nairobi and 14 and sunny into Nakuru. Nyeri will be sunny through at 14 and it's 16 and mostly sunny looking into Eldoret. Mombasa at 26 will be sunny through Thursday and we'll see the same in Malindi at 27. It's 22 and sunny in Kisumu and 19 and sunny in Kakamega. Kampala will be sunny through at 19 and it's 27 and sunny in Dar es Salaam. Johannesburg at 17, sunny with sunny conditions at 28 in Mogadishu. 16 and sunny into Addis Ababa, while Lagos is cloudy at 27. We'll see cloudy conditions at 25 in
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life.
We're stepping into traffic hour with some of that still really heavy on the Thika Superhighway, coming in all the way from Githurai and then going through towards Garden City and then out onto Survey and through to the Pangani Underpass. Very, very busy on the Thika Superhighway this morning. And we're also seeing traffic on Limuru Road, very heavy. Kiambu Road, quite some coming in from the Northern Bypass. And then as you come in from Kangemi, Westlands through towards Wayaki Way and then out towards Westlands, very busy here as well. We're not at a standstill on Gong Road, but you'll find some traffic in and about as you get through it. Langata Road is also starting to build up with traffic that's coming off of Magadi Road, and so that'll do the thing for a while. We are in traffic hour this Thursday. Let's try to keep things moving as we talk on SpiceFM, KE on X hashtag, the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The Cabinet Secretary for Investment, Trade and Industry, Lee Kenyanjui, is our guest this hour. And as we were coming in from that break, Waziri, you talked about, we need funds to be able to make some of these things happen. Whereas we know that very few countries who've reached some kind of economic stability have had to go through this place where your exports were beyond your imports, so that you are at a surplus. That's the only way then you'll be able to drive your economy. So what would you say are low-hanging fruits where you can get some funds in to be able to push a long-term agenda? You need something in the midterm to allow the long-term become a reality. What's that, in your opinion?
Thank you. So I think first it's good to appreciate that Kenya is in a very unique position. In fact, if you look at our geographical location in relation to, I think, the rest of the world, like the port of Mombasa, I think there's no money that some of these hinterland countries would not pay to be where we are. But sometimes we don't seem to appreciate that. So Kenya, in terms of production and sending its goods to across the world, to the Middle East, to India, to Europe, I think we are in a very strategic position. And it is for that reason that the government is setting up what you're calling special economic zones at the coast, so that we can be able to encourage exports to all those markets. And I think a big conversation has already started. As you saw, I think last week, we were in Mombasa to sign what we call the Dongokundu Special Economic Zone Plan, which will be able to get like 40,000 direct employment. Some of the tea we export is actually raw in gunny bags. We would want that processed here and sold directly to some of these markets. We have companies that are involved in healthcare that are also coming into that space. So I think something is already happening. It may not, the results may not be immediate, but the start has already commenced. But most significantly is that Kenya has signed trade agreements with the UAE. And UAE is basically 5 hours by air and about 7 days by sea. And what is important with UAE is that, that basically that entire belt is that it's a cash-rich, those are cash-rich economies because of oil. But because of the weather situation there, they are not very good in agriculture. So they have what we don't have. And we also have what they don't have. We have the food and they have the money. So we have signed an agreement that will make our food to be sold there, our meat, our livestock. And I want to confirm that there are huge farms, there are huge companies that are already taking advantage of that particular agreement, selling live animals, selling food, flowers, and everything into that economy. We have also signed one with the European Union. And but what really is where we should be focusing on, of all these great trade agreements, our utilization level is in the range of 10 to 15%.
What do you mean utilization level?
So, like, out of the entire volume we should be sending to the Middle East, we are only able to send about 10 to 15% of that, which means we are not utilizing even halfway into what government has created those markets. But it's up to you and I to go and grow the chili and take to the Middle East, to grow the vegetables and take there, to take your live animals into that market. So if now the citizens also don't take advantage of that, and that's now where the ministry comes, first in awareness, two, in also ensuring that we meet the standards into those markets, and that's now where you saw the government saying that we need to vaccinate our animals so that they can have entry into those critical markets, so that when you go and say you can be able to provide 2,000 sheep every week, we create that for the whole year. We are going to improve all these economies around Narok, Samburu, Nakuru, and all these places where the animals come from. We'll have a market. So that's a conversation we are having. And I really would want to encourage some of us to see what's really leaving this at the airport. In fact, I must say we are now even having what you call a shortage of cargo space. We are not able to get enough cargo space to send our product out. And now looking into the years to come, KQ, because right now they can't even meet the demand for cargo into these markets. So we need to expand.
Have cargo planes.
Yeah, cargo is not just about the cargo plane. Even the normal plane has a belly.
No.
Yeah.
Waziri, allow me to say no, because a cargo plane is built specifically to carry cargo. A passenger plane is specifically built to carry passengers, and the underbelly is meant for luggage. Cargo planes are humongous. They are wide, not narrow like the passenger planes. Forgive me for interrupting you, but the reason why I'm saying this is because it is something that Kenya Airways didn't invest in a timely fashion. And our nakedness was obvious during COVID, because countries that had understood this had cargo planes. We were converting passenger planes, a wonderful thing, into cargo. And yet, even the way in which a cargo plane is constructed is really very, very, very different from the way. So even as we talk about what we are saying, I'm in agreement that the plans the government has are clear. Clear when we talk here. But how clear is it to the rest of the citizens in the country? I mean, these things that we are saying, we had the CS for agriculture here, and we asked the same question. We hear you.
PS. Yeah.
PS. We hear exactly what you're saying, but beyond this conversation we're having, how does the rest of the country know what it is that you're talking about? You'll tell me they're listening. Yes, they're listening, but is there a specific communication plan that is there so that all this wonderful news and information is made available? And I'm raising the question to you.
Thank you. So, with respect to KQ, I know we have our challenges, but I would want to say that there are very few African countries with a national carrier. So I think we must start there. That KQ, with its challenges, is still the best in the region. Actually, apart from Ethiopian, KQ goes to almost all the capitals in the world. So what we need is how can we make it better? And I think for me, where we are right now is the idea of now making cargo a core business segment of KQ, because right now actually the other airlines are actually getting much of that business. But this is a very good problem to have, that now we have something to sell outside there. We have many markets that the government has opened. Now the gap, which is really what Muga is saying, that now can we go back to our people? Can we go to Kitale? Can we tell the people of Kitale the following can grow? It is needed in Oman. It is needed in Dubai. It is needed in this country. Can we carry along our banks and tell them there's a market, there's a farmer here. What he doesn't have is capital. Can you avail that capital at the right interest rate and at the right terms so that now this farmer can start? And I want to say this conversation, because I think also we can agree as Kenyans. We can either congregate and criticize and ask at the end of the day, what solution will you get out of it? But you can also congregate and say, well, let's look at that European economic agreement. What is it that we can be able to provide? And there are thousands.
And that for me is what the low-hanging fruit is. Because before you said, okay, so in the midterm, we need 1, 2, 3 so that we can achieve the long term. And that for me is the low-hanging fruit that we are not taking advantage of. That even that conversation that we had with the PSOs 3 weeks ago. Right?
Perfect.
And you talk about there are farmers who can grow chili from here to Kitale, from here going in that direction, even in the dry areas going through towards the eastern part, that there are things that can actually grow that are needed. A huge agreement that was signed between two countries, G to G, and there are certain things that can be done now. It's not 5 to 10 years or 20 years. It's now. It's in the midterm, in 2 to 5 years.
Absolutely.
So the question is, when do we break through the bureaucracy, the let's have a meeting tomorrow kind of thing, and say, tomorrow let us have a conversation with our farmers who can do 1, 2, 3 and get them going today? Because we don't have a tomorrow problem. We have a today problem. So why can't we have today solutions?
So thank you. I think the main issue here, we must agree, there are historical problems that require very bold actions. And I think that's really what you're trying to do. And I want to give an example of Nigeria. Nigeria for the longest time produced oil. Some biggest producer of oil in the world, in Africa.
They were.
But they would sell or send all their oil to be refined elsewhere, then come to be sold
because
there.
We ate the refinery.
Absolutely. Now you have a great man called Dangote. He has put up a refinery. This refinery is going not just to supply Nigeria, but also some of the African countries, including ourselves. So maybe we need to agree that the skepticism of what has gone wrong in the past can be overcome by bold actions. And really where I want to go is that also for agriculture, our typical agriculture was carried out by people maybe who didn't get a job somewhere, who didn't do too well, who remained back at home. But agriculture cannot move forward when it is left to those who have nothing else to do. Agriculture starts to move when you and I, who have access to capital, who have knowledge, who are exposed, also go home and take that 10, 20 acre that you grow nothing but grass.
Right.
Agree with KCB and other off-takers, the bank coming in and all that, and you tell us that you can be able to do X quantity of whatever product per day. So I think the conversation should be, how can we make our agriculture attractive to people? Even me, as I sit there, I can say I'm doing 1,000 liters of milk every day and so on. Very important here on social media.
All right.
The young people in Kenya, I think Kenya is one of the places with the highest social media activity.
Interaction.
Which is good. It's very good. But also it's good to know government has a role in that. If there was no fiber optic, this would not be happening. So government is actually what has caused this. If you look at some of the bold actions done...
So it is your fault. It's government's fault that you're being criticized.
Let's agree. The government did the first thing of bringing fiber optic around the country. So, and that's why you find even international companies are keen to set here. Why? The speed of internet is not comparable to any of these other countries within the space. However, when you have internet, you can use it for many other ways.
All right.
You can use it for good, you can use it for self-destruction, So if you look at how, for example, China is using its social media, you will find the young people talking about products that are coming from the industries, the hotels, the interior design from that country and so on. So again, companies across Kenya, including government itself as an entity, must now find ways of incorporating these young people. Now we have the internet, which is now the infrastructure. Yeah. But can we have now these young people talking about Masai Mara, talking about that hotel in Savo, the magic of Savo and all that? Because you can't provide people with very high internet, high-speed internet, give them the education. Remember, Kenya is one of the best educated population within the region. And actually, in Africa, we command, even if you go to Dubai and those places, the guys who have the highest possibility of work because of their education here. So you give somebody who's very educated, high-speed internet, then you don't give him a task. They will turn that platform to some sort of negativity. So I would even want to give an example. Yes. Recently, the head of state went to open a road in Isiolo, going all the way to Mandera. That is a historic road. For the biggest time, we never had that kind of road. But you see now what comes, because you've not given those young people the benefit of marketing that road, of marketing that region.
Utilizing that infrastructure.
Or utilizing that infrastructure. Yes. Now, they use their creativity to mock and ridicule that development. So we need now to transit and say, irrespective of the institution, whether it is media, manufacturing, and all this, how can we get these young people and tell them, bring your creativity? Not to mock the development or the progress, but to market.
But Mr. CS, even when you were taking in your duty as a CS, you do realize that there are issues particularly affecting small businesses. It's these young people who are just starting up these small businesses, and you promise to reconcile certain issues, including Ichungwa asking you how you're going to make sure that the larger industries and the younger industries are not antagonistic. What have you done so far? Because the reason why we're closing them down is because we're not seeing a sustainable environment. These policies are either working against us or not in our favor.
Thank you. Okay. I think we must agree that most of the issues that have been cited, including, for example, liquidity, just the amount of money available in the economy. You talk to many people, they are old, they owe people. So there's a liquidity issue. And I think one of the things we've pressed on government, and this budget will also reflect that, is that pending bills must be paid. Yes. It is very unfair for a businessman to lose his house to a bank because he has not been paid by a county or the national government. So once we start injecting the money, then that issue of liquidity is going to be addressed. And I think also we must say, especially for counties, don't give work if you don't have the money, because we are sending too many Kenyans to the grave. And I think this is really just a fair statement for Kenyans, as in, you go, you give your house as a collateral, you go and do a job for 10 million, you're not paid 9 months down the road, your car is sold, your house is sold, and it brings destitution. So I think that's an untidy area that we need to deal with, and I think Parliament also has a role. But we are also urging Treasury that the government reduces its appetite on local borrowing so that the banks now can have money to lend to business people.
So how do you then create this situation? Because I'm going to come back to this environment that needs to be conducive for these things that the plans are in place to happen. If you have land available and you look at small to medium to large scale farmers and you have agreements that have been done G to G, government to government, with the UAE, for example, and then you have off-takers. Already you have off-takers in the Gulf, for example. There are off-takers in Europe. There are agreements that have been made between Kenya and some of these countries. And then if the government doesn't lay down a plan for which these small businesses can operate within, it becomes very difficult. How then would you be able to tell the same Kenyans to come into agreements which would essentially help the manufacturing sector, which would help the export sector, on pending bills, for example? When you owe 690 billion shillings in pending bills, and here you are, you want to deal with a situation where you need these same very Kenyans to be able to work in a sector that would now be able to ramp up your exports. It's a difficult situation, is it not, Waziri? How would you come out of that?
Okay, I think first, with respect to funds owed by government, and actually what happens when there's a cash squeeze, everybody owes the other. You know, you've not paid your fees for your kid, you've not been paid rent, you've not paid your mortgage, so it becomes an issue. But once liquidity is brought into the market, then you'll find whoever owed you is even paying you before you ask him and that kind of thing. But it must start with government and also making sure that as you solve that past problem, we don't create another one. And that's why we're saying that let us not be too ambitious in our budgets, where we go and procure so much, yet we don't have enough money. Let us learn to live within our means as a government, and there's, government entities and counties all included, so that you don't commit and tell somebody, can you go and build that hospital, hoping that we will get money. Finally, we don't get, and that guy is finally auctioned. So I think there's also an issue about ambitious budgets, that a county comes and says, we're going to do all this. They don't realize maybe more than 60% of the budget they were hoping to get. Therefore, the 40% goes as a pending bill.
Or that you can tell a farmer, come and grow chili on your 5 acres, or, give me 100,000 goats over the next 1 year. How is that farmer assured that the same government is going to actually pay them from the off-taker?
Is there a clear timeline?
The government has no role in buying your chili, your sheep and goat. So what we are trying to do is to build an infrastructure.
Okay.
So there are people whose business is to export, say, sheep and goat and camels to the Middle East. So what they want is now a dedicated sort of off-take arrangement. So they have registered or contracted farmers, and then they also have them they sell there. Because it is not possible for me, if I can only get a one pickup, to now become an exporter. It's not
Doesn't
economical.
make sense.
So, and that's why the government is coming up with what we call aggregation centers, where you bring your pickup, I bring my pickup, we combine it, and then we sell it outside there. And I think one of the things we'll be doing is to have open days where we call Kenyans, maybe let's all meet in Limuru. This is one of the aggregation centers. These are the products, these are the vegetables that you are sending. And just for your information, if you go to a typical UK supermarket today, and you go to the vegetable section, over 40 to 50%, depending on where you go, are vegetables grown right here. And they are flown every single day to that market. Now, what you want is to increase that. So that also when you go to Germany and France and all those other places, and remember, they have months when they cannot grow some of these things, while Kenya enjoys good weather round the year. Our tourism is also another area we must look at, that you can visit Kenya any time of the year. Some of these countries, including Dubai itself, for example, there are certain months, if you go there, you'll be melting.
Yes.
But you have, this huge advantage from a weather perspective, also for stability as a nation. I must say, if you want to compare our country with any other country here, we may make all the noises, we may have all manner of headlines, but we all go back home and sleep and wake up in the morning, and life goes on.
Did you say headline?
Yeah, I had that too.
But sometimes, if you read and then you find Kenyans, everybody's going about his normal business, life is going on. So I'm saying Kenya is a very stable nation. And in fact, if you look at all the regions around us, even the larger Africa, we're at a very, 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 very good space. Maybe the point we need is also to help Kenyans to also see that they're in a great country. And sometimes it's good to separate between your country and whatever politics that we may have for the day. Because if you look at the investments that have come in Kenya, in the last 5 or so years, then you begin to see. And these are people who have the opportunity to go to any other part of the world, but have chosen to come to Kenya. Yeah. Even in the hotel industry, the 5-6-star hotels that have come in the last 2, 3, 4 years will amaze you.
Yeah, I mean, it's our time is running out, yes, but then it's clearly obvious that, the job that government has is to build a conducive environment in which these things that you're talking about can flourish. The hope continues to be that in terms of building a sustainable economy, that the government just does that does create a conducive environment for these things to happen. And so thank you for being part of this conversation this morning. And our hope is that we can talk with you again and see that environment more and more is being built, and that we can see the proceeds from it and actually pick that low-hanging fruit.
Thank you.
The Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry is Lee Kinyanjui. He's been our guest this hour. Those conversations continue, and we're looking forward to a more sustained economy for Kenya. Good morning. It is now 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga. The Kenya Editors Guild has expressed outrage at an incident on Wednesday in which a number of journalists were allegedly assaulted and obstructed by police from covering protests in Majengo area of Wairimu Estate, Nairobi. The members of the Fourth Estate were documenting events as they unfolded during a clash between angry residents and police from Wairimu police station, which was sparked by the shooting to death of a 17-year-old boy on Tuesday night. In a statement, President Zubeida Kananu called for the arrest of the officers who attacked the journalists, compensation for the destruction of their media equipment, and a public apology over what she termed as primitive attacks on journalists. She said the affected journalists were a camera person and reporter from NTV, a photographer from Nation, and a reporter from The Star. President William Ruto is reportedly planning a major shake-up in the health docket, which could see Cabinet Secretary Deborah Baraza and one of the principal secretaries reshuffled. The docket has been plagued by negative publicity, largely due to the discontent and failures of the Social Health Authority. Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe is tipped for a return to Afya House, the Ministry of Health headquarters, where he previously served during the COVID-19 period. The reshuffle is expected to give ODM's Raila Odinga at least 2 more cabinet secretaries in addition to the 5 already in his camp. At the principal secretary level, up to 40% of the current office holders could be replaced as part of the new power share agreement between Ruto and Raila. Now, Kenyans continue to raise concerns about the performance of the Social Health Authority, despite the government repeatedly promising to improve its services. Some residents of Nyamira County are now urging President William Ruto to scrap the insurance and instead return Kenyans to their previous NHIF.
Tafadhali tunaomba serikali ijue ya kwamba neno linaitwa SHIF limeleta shida sana kwa hospitali wakati mtu amekuwa mgonjwa, kwa sababu ukienda hospitali unafika huko unaambiwa ulete pesa upate matibabu.
Kwa hivyo naomba Mheshimiwa Ruto, tafadhali, hakuna matibabu ambao uliongeza kwa SHA ambao haikuwa kwa NHIF.
And the residents' comments come as some patients seeking care at public hospitals have been forced to pay from their pockets for the services. Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Migos has said his ministry has prepared a framework agreement that will enable workers at TUK to return to work. The move comes days after the workers at the university went on strike of unpaid wages and poor working conditions.
We have been able to put on the table a proposal for the unions to ensure that we have a short-term, a medium-term, and a long-term plan to ensure that we keep the employees at work, we keep the academic staff in class, and we keep the students in class so that we do not have these very many disruptions in these universities that has led to the academic calendar being affected.
Migos has given the workers 1 day to consider the report and return to work.
Then we'll do a return to work formula, and hopefully the students will be back in class before long. So we've agreed that they'll take a day to consider the proposal, and we'll have another meeting on Thursday to now discuss the final details or amendments and adjustments that may become necessary for us to be able to ensure that we have resolved this crisis.
And in the international scene, US President Donald Trump issued what he said was a last warning to Hamas to release all the hostages in Gaza immediately. Trump wrote that he would send Israel everything it needs to finish the job and warned that not a single Hamas member will be safe if they don't do as he said. The comments came just hours after the US confirmed reports that it was negotiating directly with Hamas about hostages and the Gaza ceasefire in a move that goes against its tradition of not talking to groups it considers terrorist organizations. That's the news wire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
We did check into traffic hour just a while ago and just taking a look at what's happening on the streets this morning. Some traffic already built on the Thika Superhighway and will go bumper to bumper through towards Survey for a while. Also coming off of Langata Road today, there's quite some. Magadi Road is going to feed into that as well, and to get past the barracks, it'll slow down just a little bit and then gets you off towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, so there we're okay. There is traffic on parts of Uhuru Highway this morning, and who's this? This is Outer Ring. Quite some traffic here as well, and we're going to deal with that bit by bit as you go through the city this morning. The Eastern Bypass has quite some traffic as well. The Southern Bypass will take you through into the city without a problem at all, and then out to other parts depending on where you're going. So yes, we're on traffic hour. Let's see how we traverse it, and we'll talk on Spice FM KE on X # The Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
6 minutes after 8 o'clock, and we're into the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this morning. And we are looking very clearly at the impact that programs where young people can get an attempt to make a connection between what they've not been able to get before and then into education that gives them front and center seat at education as well as opportunity when it comes to work or business. And that's the conversation that we'll be looking at today. But CT is going to tell us about mortgages before we move on quickly.
Mortgages. Banks. People like the idea of owning their homes, and they like the idea that they can receive assistance from financial institutions. And financial institutions do offer solutions. DTB Bank is saying we have such a solution, but you need to come and talk to us or simply email us. You'll ask, what's the email? The email is mortgages@dtbafrica.com. But what on earth will be at the end of that particular email when they respond to you? They'll tell you, 1, we will charge you an interest rate of 9% and it'll be a constant. No ups and downs and rainy weather and dry season. But that's for 10 years. 25 years, we'll charge you 9.75%. And they're also saying, look, there will be no hidden charges. 1, 2, we will not penalize you for paying ahead of the schedule. And this works whether you're employed, whether you are self-employed, whether you are in the diaspora. You can access up to listen to this carefully, up to. Don't say CT said, I've come for my 105%. No, up to. Anything ranging from up to.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that is. And if you're in the diaspora, up to 80%.
There you go.
The thing you need to understand is you need to go and have a chat with the DTB. Go and communicate. Tell them what you have. Tell them what you need. And let's see if you can figure out what is best suited for you within the means that you have.
There you go.
Yes.
All right. Well, there it is. And there's the email that you need to send through this morning. So we've been having impact conversations over the last few weeks, and we've been looking at practical ways in which programs that have been instituted are actually making sure that people make a connect between what they don't, where they are, and where they can be. And that has been through the KCB Foundation to Jejiri program. And that we will have a conversation about today as well. Already seated in the hot seat this morning is Mendy Njonjo, who is the director of the KCB Foundation. Mendy, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm happy to be here. I'm great.
Oh, fantastic. We're glad to have you here because we've been talking KCB Foundation, KCB Foundation, KCB Foundation. We've talked
now
foundation.
The foundation is here.
Now the foundation. You are the mountain. Who is Mohammed? I'm not. There is Mohammed, there's the mountain, there's foundation, and then there's Mendy. And you're here today, and so it's really a pleasure for us to then be able to make that connect with you.
Thank you.
We're going to be joined soon by a program participant, and his John Mutunga. He'll join us and tell us, a little bit more about his story. So that'll be great to do. But even as we do that, we like to put people to work. As though you don't have enough to do. We put people to work here when you come in the morning, and we give your brain a little bit of a tumble turn.
Okay.
And CT goes to a different African country every week. How he goes, you can talk about that with me later. But he comes back from a different country with a basket full of proverbs, and he gives us one every day. And then he's going to share that one with you. You let us know how you would interpret that, and we'll see how many millions of points with which you can do whatever you want he will give.
Yes, our proverbs for this week are from the Republic of Burkina Faso. Those who seek revenge must remember to dig 2 graves.
Okay. Those who seek revenge must remember
yes.
to dig 2 graves.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay.
Seek revenge. Just please don't let us stop you. Proceed.
Okay.
But while you're doing it,
yes,
dig 2 graves.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So my interpretation on that is it's perhaps a caution.
Yes.
To anyone who wants to go seeking revenge, that it may end up being also something that points at you. So it maybe is akin to the African proverb, if you point with one finger, there's 3 others that are pointing at you. So it's perhaps in that, can I say family of proverbs, in that basket that CT has. That would be my interpretation.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many points?
Well, on a scale of 1 to 10,
yes,
let's be fair, because she did actually rally very valiantly and gave a response that makes sense. Out of 10, you say?
Yeah. Okay.
11.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Because I also donated a proverb.
Very well done.
There you go. All right. So, look, Mendy, there's so many things when you look at a nation that go belly up every now and then. You talk about corruption, you talk about lack of access to education, lack of access to opportunity, the employment rate, everything sometimes. And you say, if you were to solve problems, where do you start? Really? So obviously, with what we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks, even since December last year, is the conversations that we've been having around how lives have been impacted through the programs under the KCB Foundation. Talk us through that a little bit and say, okay, well, did you look around and say, okay, guys, there's too much that's not happening, and we need to be able to see how we can sort out some of these issues. Tell us about that and how you get into this business of helping.
Absolutely. So it really starts from what it is that you've talked about, which is there's too much that's not happening. From the educational perspective, in terms of really smart Kenyans, not being able to access high school and tertiary education. And then the biggest of them all, access to jobs, decent jobs. I think that is a preoccupation that any person who lives in Kenya, actually anybody who lives on the continent, really should be preoccupied by, because unemployment is significant. Youth unemployment is particularly significant because right now we're talking about 67% of young people in Kenya are not able to get a decent job. About 1 million Kenyans every year enter the workforce with no possibility of being able to be employed. So for us, it really starts there. And it actually doesn't start as a problem. It's actually looking at these young people as the precious resource they are, human capital.
Yeah.
It's the best thing we have in the nation. So for us, it's really seeing how do we build on this really precious resource, which is young, smart, ready to work, ready to school people. And that's where the KCB Foundation comes in.
The 2G program is one specific. Why that?
So it's very specific because we knew that if we wanted to tackle the issue of unemployment, we really had to tackle it from two elements. One is from the space of providing skills for people who want to enter the workforce. Either you want to be self-employed or you want to be an employer. And then the second was around really supporting enterprises, businesses, especially the smaller businesses, so the micro and the small medium enterprises. So to tackle these two issues, we provide vocational training scholarships every year. And then we also have a program still within Tujajiri where every year we support these MSMEs with business development support and through partnership with KCB Kenya, also access to finance. So it's this two-pronged approach that is really seeking to skill Kenyans, and then the second to really build strong, viable businesses, as well as now also making sure they're able to access capital in the forms that they need. Yeah.
So how have you seen, I mean, we've heard some of the stories. I'm looking forward to the one that we'll hear today. But how have you seen that lives have been impacted by this project? What have you actually practically seen that has said, you know what, guys, this is working and we should continue?
So if I turn to, let's say, something like vocational training, and you have the ability to have somebody who otherwise do not have been able to attend one of these market courses that we really try and support in terms of scholarships, so construction, beauty, and so on and so forth. So the ability for someone to be able to enter into a vocational training institution, get the skills that they need, and then exit and then subsequently get employment. I think for me there are so many stories because like last year we trained about 16,000, we provided 16,000 scholarships. So out of those, it is the ability of someone who otherwise would not have been able to get this particular skill set and be able to transform that into money in their pocket. And as we all know, I mean, we live in this country. Unfortunately, access to a job is sometimes the gateway to even being able to access your health rights, being able to access, let me say, almost the entire slew of rights that should be accruing to us as citizens. So that's the one thing that we have also seen. And then on the other hand, our enterprise support program, we've also been able to really see, and it's very gratifying, being able to see all of these businesses that we've been able to support. Last year, we supported about 37,000 businesses with business development support. So being able to see them grow in terms of they have been able to get business development support, they're stronger, they're able to access finance in the forms that they need, and they're therefore able to sustain themselves. And we all know it was perhaps, it was a tough year last year. So for me, I think there are very many gratifying stories amongst these vocational training scholarships, as well as also the enterprises that we were privileged to support last year.
All right, now I'm looking at the 16,000 scholarships, because then even with the education system, they talk about 100% transition. There's one thing to empower them. There's another thing to ensure that they are just as sustainable as the 37,000 businesses that you're supporting. So which are the success stories in terms of those who have actually stayed, hanging on after giving them the skills and now starting their own businesses or getting into employment, and they're standing in there strongly? Are there circumstances where people have slipped back, or you're very, very confident that they're all just but flying high as you expected them?
So we do have very many success stories. So if I take the vocational training stories, scholarships rather that you're pointing out. So we do have participants who have been able to get the training and are now self-employed, and I'm really grateful that you've also been able to profile some of them.
Yes.
And when it comes to the businesses, that is a really excellent question, because we do not think that the support we provided is necessarily going to be one and done. We're also relatively sure that every so often we may need to really support these businesses, because it's a tough economic environment right now, right? And so one of the things that we are also doing, even with the group of participants we supported last year, is to also provide support to them this year on a needs basis.
Okay.
So we are really trying to also communicate to the people that we work with that we're here for the long haul. So it's not just coming in, a quick intervention and then leaving. What we want to do is to make sure that if we start with you, we really try and stay the course, so that at least it's not one of those interventions where you see somebody and then the next thing you know, they're gone. Yeah.
The thing that I find utterly and absolutely fascinating is how KCB Foundation came upon this extremely remarkable way of looking at being part of a solution. I'm saying this because in the weeks that we've had people who participated in the program, and just looking at the width and the breadth of the program across the counties that we have in this country, and I'm looking at this model and I'm saying, but this is a model that can be escalated, not by KCB, no. This is a model that can be actually escalated by the government. You train people, you then partner with people who can actually employ, and you move this particular conversation forward. I'm saying this because forget the job, forget the possibilities. The thing that in my mind strikes me the most is the hope it provides, because apathy is a terrible thing to have. One is young, one vigorous, one has the energy, and one wants to do things, and you can't see the end of your study. You know you're going to school to study, but you can't see where this thing is going to take you. It's the hope. Okay. Having said that, a bank has very many partners. They usually call clients. These people who come and open accounts. Yes, and you utilize them well in this particular program. If we're to think of escalating it, what would we do?
So you've asked what if I was in government, so maybe let me defer that question in terms of what the government perhaps would do, and then let me say what we would do in terms of really scaling it up.
See, now that's a nice way of looking at it. It's a very good way of looking at it, yes. Ask your own question and then answer it. It's good.
So still out of 10, maybe I'm still getting an 11.
No, you're 12
that is,
because the response is perfect. Yes.
So if I was to scale it up, I think one of the things that is very clear is that if you look at the enterprises we support, we've been supporting youth-owned enterprises. So for people who have businesses and are aged between 18 to 34. But it's also clear that even for maybe older people, even for sectors we don't necessarily support, that this is something that would be a very welcome addition. And then unfortunately also, if you look at our vocational training program, our scholarships, the ones that we provide, you'll find that for every scholarship we issue, there's maybe 10 people who were not able to get the scholarship, really wanted it, but really just because of resources, we weren't able to service that. So I think there is need to have a conversation in terms of how do we bridge this difference between people who want to go to school but cannot go to school, not because of aptitude, not because of anything except financial ability. So I think that's part of now the government conversation we need to have in terms of how do we bring all resources to the table. And one of the ways that we have tried to do this with county governments is by partnering with some county governments where they come up with 50-50 matching funding, where we provide, let's say for every shilling we provide, they provide another shilling, and through this, we're able to support students in some counties to access vocational training. So it's a model that can really be picked up across, the entire country. And through this, we are therefore able to now really stretch our shilling further.
So it should be a conversation that's front and center, because isn't that the folks who enter into the 2GRG program, most of the times you'll find, out of high school, not able to make the connect to higher education, and not even to, a TVET. But then you make the connection for them. 6 months going into a training course. So they're getting the fundamentals that they need to start a job, and then maybe get education later on, or to then start a business. But then that is the conversation right there, that it is possible to actually put them in school. And we're not finding, I'm not going to answer the question. Are we finding people who are coming for this Skills Connect who are able financially to put themselves through school?
Are we finding enough people?
No, are we finding any people who are on their own able to send themselves to school coming to the 2GRG program?
So generally, you will find there are people who are already able on their own initiative, right, through their own funding or through friends and family, able to put themselves through whatever vocational, private or public learning institutions. Now, for those, we find they are not necessarily the people who would really need to GRG. Because the ones we're looking for are the ones who deeply desire but don't have the economic ability to join said program. So those are the ones we're really looking to partner with.
Exactly. That's the thing, that you won't find the folks who can pay for themselves then in the 2GRG program. However, that there's a significant amount of those, a significant enough that you're not able to take all of them at one go, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So there is a big problem.
There is, because as I said, for every scholarship we provide, for every student we're able to give a scholarship for the vocational training, that is, you'll find, number one, even the people who applied, it's probably going to be, 25, 30? The ones who were shortlisted, maybe 20? And then the ones who were able to place are now going to be, out of that, maybe 20, 30, maybe 2, right? So, and we did about 16,000 last year, 16,000 scholarships last year, right? So if you look at the total number, it's easily about 150,000 maybe who would have wanted, but we weren't able to, just because of the resources that we have.
All right. Yeah. I'm very curious about how you are bringing in persons with disability in your program, people with special needs. Perhaps even last year, the 16,000 thereabout. What was the percentage that were persons with special needs?
So we try to make a very deliberate effort that 10% of our programming should be dedicated to persons, so to some affirmative action element. So persons with disability for 2GRG are the people who we have really tried to make sure we not only ring fence, but we also put aside 10% of these scholarships for persons with disability. And the way that we have been able to do that is that it starts from the beginning, because you can't just say, I want to support persons with disability in our scholarships program. So one of the things we do is that whenever we're partnering, let's say with training institutions, we make sure that we partner with training institutions that have the capacity and the ability to provide this sort of training to persons with disability. And then out of that, we also make a call where we are really emphasizing that we're also looking for persons with disability to enter to join the scholarship application process. In addition to that, even when you look at our weighting criteria in terms of how we assign the scholarships, we also make sure that we have really put in extra weighting for people who have disabilities, so that we can at least affirm that commitment towards getting persons with disability. So we don't always hit the 10%, but it's certainly a target that we will always try and make sure we attain year on year.
Very critical as such, because then someone would say, how are they exposed to this application process as well? You do realize sometimes they have concerns even with just being left out in government, exercises. It's really, really important that we'll do a follow-up on that maybe in the future, if you actually then meet that 10% for them as well. Yeah.
So what do we see? I mean, we talk to the participants who come, we talked to a number of them, and it blows my mind every time, because the transition between where there was hopelessness and you're not going to be able to find who's going to help you, and where they were and where they are 6 months after that is phenomenal. The transition between, well, here I was, I in my mind I remember the young lady coming from Kitale, I believe, who then became went into the automotive engineer.
Yes.
And the story was, well, you're not going to go to school, number one, because we can't do it. And then number two was, look at people who have gone into a course and you've done better than in high school, but you don't have the opportunity. And so she did make the application through somebody who gave her an opportunity to do so. And the transition between whereby there was absolutely nothing that you would then be able to achieve, to the point whereby now you can actually imagine owning your own mechanic shop and working under and for somebody else in 6 months is unbelievable. And it's a model that I think needs to be replicated, that we talk about, that what you're doing is creating hope, but not just creating it in a mind, but establishing it as a reality for people to be able to do. I think that maybe KCB Foundation doesn't realize just how impactful this thing actually is. So those are the champions of the project, and then how can you look at this and say we can enhance it even more? Are those conversations happening for you?
Absolutely, and that's a really pertinent observation in terms of choosing hope, right, as a really almost like a radical choice, because sometimes when you have these conversations, it's really easy to just be cynical and be that one of the most disappointing conversations that sometimes happen in the country is that there are opportunities, but they're not necessarily for people like us. That's the discourse that happens within some spaces, right? And for me, what I really like about programs like Tujiajiri is that opportunity to really show that it really doesn't matter, not your gender. You want to get into automotive, right? Your socioeconomic status. Those are not things that really should matter, right? So really also trying to fulfill that promise that is in the Constitution and all of these documents that we have as a nation. And I think even from KCB's perspective, that notion of shared prosperity, that notion that we really have to, can I say, water the nation that actually feeds us, even as a bank, as a financial institution, as a foundation. I think for me that is something that is absolutely spot on. And the ability to, I like the idea of rallying around hope, right? And then the programming that then now happens really starts with looking at hope almost as a North Star in terms of this is what we're looking at. It is creating opportunities. It's not looking at youth unemployment. It is looking at young people who want to work. So how do we tap into this really amazing resource that we have? So it's really flipping conversations and starting with hope and starting with promise as what it is that we're leading by.
Indeed. Mendi Jonjo is a director at the KCB Foundation, and we're looking at the impact of the Tujiajiri program under the KCB Foundation this morning, and just trying to say, okay, we'll talk about time and how long this has been and how long that we hope that it can continue. We'll do that when we come back from this break, when we take a look at weather and traffic, and we continue the conversation with Mendi after this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with SpiceFM.
Sunny conditions at 18 in Nairobi, 16 and sunny in Okoh with 17 and sunny conditions in Nyeri. It's 20 and sunny in Eldoret, while Ombaso is today at 27 currently, and Lydiah at 25 and sunny into Kisumu, while into Canada at 24 is sunny at the moment. It's sunny at 22 in Kampala and at 27. Johannesburg is at 27 with 17, while Mogadishu at 29 with 32, and Addis at 8. of cloudy conditions.
Spice up your life.
Still seeing some traffic on the Thika Superhighway coming into the city, but you get towards the fork in the road between Muranga Road and Wangari Maathai Way, we shouldn't see too much there. Kiambu Road still has some traffic as you're coming towards Muthaiga Square, so let's watch out for that. Langata Road traffic was starting to be very busy, but that has reduced significantly, and we're seeing some traffic then going towards Rilo Dinga Way. But you're all right coming in from the Huru Gardens interchange and then getting onto Langata Road. There is some traffic as you approach the southern bypass heading out towards Kibera. So that's busy, and there's a lot of traffic on that road this morning. Not quite sure what's kicking there, but we'll keep an eye on that. Coming in from the eastern bypass, ebbing and flowing of traffic, but now it's bumper to bumper through and through. Very tight traffic, also with traffic that goes on to Outer Ring. So watching out for that. We're still in traffic hour. Let's see how it all pans out as we get out of it, and we'll talk on SpiceFM KE on X, #The Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
At 26 minutes to 8 o'clock this morning, I beg your pardon, to 9 o'clock this morning, we're having a conversation around the impact of the Tujiajiri Foundation the Tujiajiri program under the KCB Foundation. And we've just been talking, the last half hour or so about impact that it has had and what we expect it will do for the lives of young people. Joining us also in this hour, we'll talk to him in just a little bit. Mendy Njonjo is a director at the KCB Foundation, and as we've been looking into those conversations, we're going to look at now the impact from the point of view of one of the program participants who can talk to some of the things that you've been talking about this morning. And he joins us now, and it's John Mutunga. John, good morning.
Good morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
You found your way here all right.
Yeah.
We've been waiting for you, but we're glad that you've come at least to share some of this information with us, and you tell us in whatever way you're comfortable speaking. So that is fine. We've been talking about the impact that this foundation, or rather that this program has had on people, but we want to know a little bit about your story, where you started off, how you got plugged in to the program.
Okay. After Form 4, I didn't do well in KCSE. Can I speak also Swahili?
Yes, please go ahead.
Very, very, very
please
welcome.
go ahead.
After Form 4, now I used to see nobody now cares about me anymore because you didn't do well. So what do you want? Unataka kwenda college? Unataka kwenda college gani basi? Nani atakulipia college?
Ndio.
Hata tukikulipia hatukushua kama like ushacheza high school, tumekupea hiyo chance ya kusoma, umeenda umecheza. That is what my parents wanasema, lakini mimi najua I did my best.
Walisema ulicheza ukiwa high school?
Juu ukufanya vizuri, wengine wamefanya vizuri, mimi ni last born. Mimi najua nilifanya my best. So nilikuwa kwa shughuli za kutafuta basi naweza fanya nini juu wengine wanaenda shule, so mimi nafaa kuwa nafanya kitu. Nikaonanga post ilikuwa ad kwa Facebook ya KCB Tujiajiri. Hiyo date yenye walikuwa wana advertise, nikaimark, alafu nikatokeanga. Hiyo time nilichelewa, sikupata chance hiyo mwaka. But hiyo mwaka yenye ilikuja nilikuwa nishajua kuna kitu kayo inaendelea, so nilifuatilia. Alafu nilikuwa nishajua the location, sasa place yenye mara ya pili nilienda mapema. Hivyo ndivyo niliingia kwa Tujiajiri. Nikapata hiyo chance.
Uli-apply? Ama uli-apply
alafu kuna mtu alikuwa anapeana story. Mbona unafikiria unafaa upewe hiyo chance? Walinipea hiyo chance. Nikasoma CITC.
Hapa Nairobi?
Hapa Nairobi.
Alright. Kwa muda gani?
Mwaka moja. Alafu juu kitu nilikuwa nimejitolea, like nilikuwa naenda daily. Nilikuwa najua course yenye nimechagua nafaa kwenda nao mahali. Sifai eti tena nifanye course mtu amenilipia alafu tena ikuwe tu ni bure. Nilifanya welding.
Hiyo course ya welding wakati ulikuwa una apply ulishajua ndio unataka kufanya ama ulipata kuchagua wakati ulishaingia foundation? Ilikuwa passion already ulikuwa nayo? Okay,
mimi ni creative.
Alright.
Naweza fanya vitu mingi sana na akili. So hata before ni apply tujiajiri nilikuwa naogopa welding. Najua mtu mmoja ashaiuliwa na stima. Nilikuwa naogopa sana welding, lakini wakati nilienda huko nikaona watu wengi wame apply electrical installation. Nikasema hapana, mimi sitaenda place iko na watu wengi, acha niende welding ndo hata niache kuogopa stima. Siku za kwanza nilikuwa naogopa kweli.
Of course.
Niliacha kuogopa wakati tulienda attachment. Hata si nikiwa shule. Bado nikiwa shule kuna venye nikiguza stima nilikuwa nasikia tu ni short. Na watu wengine wasikii kiwa short. Mimi niliweza cooperate welding wakati tumeenda attachment. Attachment pia nilienda huko Ngong karibu na mtaa. Nikamaliza attachment. Sasa baada ya attachment mtu alipwi. Na pia nyumbani washanionyesha sasa hiyo usipotafuta shughuli yenye inakupea do. Hapa pia tuwezi kupea do. Ikabidi tujiajiri walikuwa wanatuambia tufungue kampuni.
Yaani uanze biashara yako?
Uanze biashara yako. Na nilikuwa na vitu mingi sana zinani-inspire. Eti nakuja nafanyia msee kazi na nilipi. Nilikuwa nafikiria mbona hata mimi nisifanye kitu. Si mimi ndo nafanya welding hapa. Lakini kwanza ni ngumu. Una machine, una hata stima, hata ujui unaenda kwanza wapi. Lakini at least nilikuwa na idea.
Yes.
Nikiwa nimefungua workshop, vitu zingine zitakaa mtu pole pole. Hivyo tu ndio nilifanya. Nikafungua workshop last year. Around mwezi wa 6. Wakati kulikuwa na Gen Z protest. Hiyo ndio time nilijenga workshop. Na struggle tu hapo.
So ulikuwa na keep your motisha? Because in the midst of your Gen Z protest na wewe ukasema basi energy na sisi tutaenda kaende. Now listen, hizi vitu ulifungua na workshop. Umejua hiyo time ulikuwa unaanza hata uko na hata umejua uko unalipwa ukifanya kazi kadogo, lakini hizi vitu zilitoka wapi workshop ikasimama? Ama uko na viungo vipi vimesomesha workshop?
Sawa. Place yenye niko ni Jua Kali. So apart from welding pia kuna shughuli zingine kama kuunda jiko. Kuunda jiko nilifunzwa na mtu mwingine tofauti. Like nilienda na nikaona akifanya kazi, nililearn kuunda jiko na kuobserve. Pia nilikuwa naongea na huyo msee ananiambia pesa yeye uan. Naona hata ni dopo hata at least ukiunda jiko 2 unajua umeenda mtana 100. Welding haiko inalipwa. Welding hata sahii mwanafunzi alipwi. But kuunda jiko ukiwa mwanafunzi unaweza lipwa. So nilitoka welding nikaenda kufunzwa jiko. But siku sasa hiyo nimefungua workshop. Hiyo moment yenye nikistruggle pia naona historia ulipwi.
Na uliambiwa usikuje home bila kitu.
Actually hata si eti uliambiwa usikuje home bila kitu. Mimi mwenyewe nahitaji do. Nitahitaji credit kupigia mtu ama kitu kama hiyo. Saa zingine unaangalia una kitu na una option. Utafanyaje? Unarukia tu yenye iko karibu.
Vipi?
Poa.
Uko sawa? Karibu lakini.
Asante.
Mimi naitwa Muga. Wewe ni wale watu ambao inatakikana tuwasherekee wakati wa Shujaa Day. Kwa sababu mtu ambaye amejibidisha kitambo atafute namna ya kujistiri na kuhakikisha kwamba anawezesha maisha yake. Hiyo ni kitu muhimu sana.
Unajua watu wengi kuingia hiyo ndio option tuko nayo.
Kabisa.
Huwezi ngoja eti unatafutiwa. Watu wa kutafutia hata wamechoka ukiwaangalia unahurumia tu.
Kabisa. So after twende nyuma kidogo tu. ukimaliza kusoma, ukimaliza masomo KCITI, sio ulisema KCITI? CITI. Yeah. CITC ndio ulienda. Okay. Wakati ulimaliza, ulifanya nini kabla ulipata hii idea ya kufungua workshop yako?
Unajua uko CITC nakumbuka vitu za mwisho zilikuwa kwenda attachment. Hapo ndo tuliacha hata kukujanga town, mtu anatafuta workshop like attachment karibu na workshop iko karibu na kwenu. Mimi nakaa huko Ngong, so mimi pekee ndo natoka huko, si watu wengi wanatoka huko. So nilijipata kule hivyo, sipati watu tumesoma nao eti tuna engage. Pia kule hakuna kampuni eti kama huku town wasi walikuwa nasema wanaenda industrial area. Mimi ningeweza kupiga hesabu yangu singeweza kufika huko. So mimi nilienda ile workshop iko karibu. Nikaambia msee story yangu, nikaambia hata niko attachment. Akakubali nikuwe kwa workshop yake.
Ufanya kazi ya kulipwa?
Haiko ya kulipwa. Wewe ni mwanafunzi. Ukiwa mwanafunzi hata kama umetoka college, yeye yuko hakuwa hapo, hayuko sure kama unajua chenye unafanya.
Sure.
Yeah, so anakuobserve. So kwa msee nilifanya 6 months. Inashanga bado hata 100. Mimi niliacha kwenda kufanya hiyo welding. Niliacha kwenda kufanya hiyo welding. Juu msee kuna kitu alikuwa anipea. Na nikaenda kuunda jiko. Siku za kwanza nilikuwa napata so moja.
Alright. But nikuulize, ulipokuwa na huyu mzee as you call him, kuna kitu yote ambao ulikuwa wewe mwenyewe ukifikiria ulijifundisha kitu ambacho ulikuwa kabla ya kufika hapo ulikuwa hujui?
Nimejifunza hapo kwake. Vitu mingi sana. Nimejifunza vitu mingi sana.
Kweli?
Kama interact na customer. Vitu kama kuongea na customer nimejua nikiwa kwake. Juu hata apart from hiyo kazi yenye hizo tasks zenye alikuwa anatupea, ningeweza kupatana tuseme mtu akona motorbike anataka kufanya welding, nikuje tu bila kuinvolve boss, ni kazi tu ya sport haraka. Mimi mwenyewe nipate hiyo 100. Juu hata 100 yake akipata tutagawana.
Kwa hivyo pia ulichangamka kiakili.
Inabidi nimetafuta best yangu mwenyewe, like nakupea idea. Siwe ndo kuna motorbike. Mimi mwenyewe ndo nakuja na hiyo idea. Nakwambia si unaweza uongeze tu kama mabati hapa. Sasa mtu hata akikuja tuongezie mabati. Hata naona ni kama na overcharge. Hata ni kitu kidogo mimi tu hapa tunataka tu nipate 100 tu.
Okay. Go ahead. No, please go ahead.
No, ukijangalia sahi na wakati ule kabla hujaingia alafu na wenzako wengine, unaona angalau kwa sababu sasa ma youth wote wana struggle, lakini angalau unaona uko mahali kwa sababu ya hizo skills ulipata, na hata hiyo interaction umekuwa na mtu wa workshop, hata kama kwa nakulipa na mtu wa jiko. Unajionaje kivipi kama Mkenya myouth sahizi kwa hiyo competition yenye iko kwa employment?
Kulingana penye mimi nimetoka, mimi naweza sema wale wasi wote nimepitia kwa hata wewe mwenyewe unanilipa. Alikuwa tu pata story. Like ameni help mahali. Siseme eti akumake impact. Wewe msata tuko sana. Nilifika tu siku moja nikamshow nimefanya hapa kazi miezi kadhaa. Na ni vizuri niende place nyingine. Tukaachana tu hivyo.
Lakini skill yako uko nayo?
Niko nayo. Ndio nifungue workshop. Nilikuwa najua nafaa tu kuwa na doa ya kuwa member wa Jua Kali. Kuna place like kuna land ya government yenye iko set aside ya watu wa Jua Kali. Wakati nilienda kuunda jiko, hiyo tu ndo nilikuwa natafuta. Ndo niache kutafuta huku nje. Like unajua saa zingine unaenda kwa workshop ya mtu anakujua already. Anaanza ashakujaja hata before umwambie kitu yote. Anakuambia wewe brother ako well off. Wewe hata sidhani uko serious unataka kutafuta kazi. Nakwambia na mbona si unalimanga, usiende ulime. Mtu anataka kukua roho. Lakini
lazima uulize kulima iko na shida gani bwana?
Haina shida. Haina shida.
Wewe mbona hutaki kulima?
na mbona nisiunde tools zitalima
very nice.
Hapo ndio
Good answer. So ulifungwaje hiyo workshop yako kusema sasa hiyo mwezi ya 6 last year?
Okay, kupewa space una need 7,000. Hiyo 7,000 nimetafuta more than mwaka moja.
Hiyo ni rent?
Okay. Registration na rent ya 1 month. Nimetafuta more than mwaka mzima. Like saa zingine unapata ukikaribia kupata hiyo do unapata kitu ingine yenye hata ujui hiyo do ilienda wapi. Hiyo do ilikuwa ngumu kupata.
Kuna watu husema kwamba ni kama shida najua ukiwa na pesa. Kabla hujapata pesa mambo ni sawa tu. Pesa ikitokea tu hivi
mambo ni mengi.
Yes. Mahitaji ni mengi.
Mahitaji.
Alafu
so like nimekuwa nikitaka sana kuwa na workshop. Hata before niende kwa tujiajiri nilikuwa nishaname place yenye nitakuwa nayo kama workshop yangu. Hata nakumbuka hii mwaka uko Januari mi huandika resolutions. Niliangalia za 2021 before hiyo ni before ningie tujiajiri nilikuwa 2022. 2021 niliona resolutions zilikuwa get a job.
Very nice.
have my own workshop.
Indeed. So ulipata hiyo pesa hiyo 7,000 ulipata aje at the end of the day?
Kwa jiko hata si kujua kuunda jiko haraka. Like nilitake siku mingi sana, so kuunda jiko moja ni 50 bob. Nilifika place nikaanza kuunda.
Tafadhali tupeleke pole.
Okay. Kuunda frame.
Jiko inaondoaje hii frame ambayo ni yes, tueleze tu ili tujue.
Jiko ndogo.
And then tueleze hiyo 50 bob inaingiaje kwa hii kitu.
Okay. Hiyo 50 bob ni frame ni hii outer part ya jiko kuna part iko na clay na kuna hii part yenye imeshikilia clay hii mabati. So kuunda hii mabati kama mabati ni yangu ukiniundia jiko ukitumia skill yako kuunda hiyo frame ya jiko ukimaliza nitakupea 50 bob. Hakuna kitu yako utatumia kila kitu yangu, hata nyundo ni yangu, lakini kujua tu kuunda jiko, ukimaliza kuunda jiko moja nitakupea 50 bob. Haikuwa rahisi. Hata sasa kuna mtu nafunza kuunda hizo jiko.
Sasa kuna mtu unafunza wewe. Very good.
Nafunza rafiki yangu.
Okay.
Naona venye si rahisi.
Unaweza kuunda jiko ngapi kwa siku moja?
Sahi naweza unda kama 15.
Very nice.
Na kwa kila jiko unapata pesa ngapi?
Sahi imeongezeka bei ni 60
bob. Okay.
Jiko moja ni 60 bob.
Hiyo ni profit sasa.
Hapana. Si mwenye kazi mabati ni yake.
Okay.
So mi hiyo kuunda jiko moja na mabati yake
anakulipa 60 bob.
Analipa 60 bob.
Okay, nimeelewa.
Na jiko mtu akitaka kununua ni pesa ngapi?
Ukitaka kununua jiko yenye ishaiko clay,
kila kitu yani iko tayari.
Jiko iko na sizes. Kuna ile ndogo kabisa ni 250.
Alright.
Kuna 300. Lakini hizo ni zile mabati soft. Zile nyepesi sana.
Okay.
Sasa zile mabati ngumu ile jiko ndogo ni 500.
Okay.
Kuna wakati mwingine huku unapata pesa yoyote, lakini umejua umeenda shule hapo KCB Foundation, hii ni benki. Kwa hivyo huwa wanasema wanakupea pia skill nyingine ya kusave na kujua venye una deal na pesa. Siku hizi unapata ka 60 at least 15 jikos 60 bob. Una deal aje na pesa yako juu unaangalia mbele, bado kuna ile imani kwamba tutapata workshop. Unaelewa hiyo pesa vinyo unacheza nayo size?
Ni challenge. Ni challenge. Sijui nitasemaje, lakini ni challenge. Design pesa haitoshi.
Okay.
Saa zingine unatumia tu yenye uko nayo.
Sure.
Usurvive tu leo.
Sawa.
Mandy.
Yes.
You've seen that journey.
I have.
When you hear that and you're at the foundation and you see now direct reality of the impact that the program then does have on somebody. What does that do in your mind?
It lights a fire, really. We need to do, I think, more in terms of numbers of people that we're supporting. I think it's also a very clear call. I mean, these are conversations we have with a lot of our program participants, even more in terms of the offering to the extent that we can, right? Because even after you provide the scholarship, then as he's saying, he wants to start a workshop, right? For the attachment, right? Where you're supposed to be getting these skills that you need to be able to then now enter said workshop and also to pass your NITA exam, right? So there's also that bridge that people have to cross, right? So it's not just about, you know, the numbers, but it's also perhaps even deepening the offering, right? Because the need is there, but the potential also, I think.
Huge.
Yeah, Mr. Mutunga here, I mean, he is a really good example of what it is that we must be doing in terms of investing in our fellow Kenyans. So to answer your question, yeah, it lights a fire. Yeah, we need to do more. Yeah.
So, I mean, there are many more. I mean, you want to be able to do everything and cover everybody. You want to, you know.
It would be good.
It would be great. But it takes a lot more than just resources to be able to have that done. And then something very interesting that John said, Vile Ulisema, that, you know, it's not just the education that you get, but then it's skills that you get, be able to manage a business. I mean, the man is armed now with the tools that he needs and the skills that he requires to set up a business, money management, customer care. And that's one thing that I liked. That for the longest time, John, ulikuwa na deal na vitu zako tu, vile hauna, vile unajaribu kuenda the next step. But then now, sasa umepata, na unafikiria vile uta-deal na watu wengine. So that's, for me, the wholesome aspect of the program, and then how it can actually get better people out of, you know, a situation. Was that something that you expected would happen, or are we looking at, you know, happy accident?
So our theory of change, our plan, was that we had absolutely hoped that if we do these sorts of interventions, that we'd end up with people who have the required skills, as well as also enough people to also start making a difference in the economies, be they local economies that they're in or even larger. So I think that is being validated in terms of we're now being able to have within even our program participants like John here, people who do have the required skills that they need to be able to, can I just say, start, right? And that ability to now also stand on your own. So that was what we had hoped for. And I think we have been pretty validated in terms of what it is that we're hearing from our program participants, be they vocational skills training, or be they the micro and small medium enterprise support program support we're providing.
What we're also essentially saying is that you are you're widespread, you know. He's talking about he lived in Gong, and we've also had some participants from different parts of the country, which I might just want you to echo again for all those, because they might think it's just a one-off thing and you guys are closing down, but somebody is really interested at this point in time to have the same skills impacted and motivation as Mr. Mutunga here. So what would you say to the new listeners today in as far as widespread associations with your clientele is concerned?
So thank you for that. So the vocational skills training, so this is something we do every year. Typically our largest intake is at the beginning of the year, and we will usually have these calls out through the KCB social, so Instagram, Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and they tend to be also like geographical in terms of we'll go from county to county, area to area, just making these calls for applications, as well as also advising people which partner institutions in terms of be they public or private that they can actually go to. So this is something that at from about December through around May, we put out these calls, we place scholarships, and then we also make them available every year. And then for the MSME work, this is something that is actually available in the entire country. So if you are an entrepreneur, so between 18 to 34, you have your own business, and it's something that you really wanted to have maybe a bit more support because you wanted maybe to access finance, but you weren't able to for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So we also put out these calls through on a rolling basis throughout the rest of, through the course of the year. But in addition to that, if you walk to any KCB branch, and we're literally everywhere. Right, you should be able to get support from our branch staff, and then, as I said, also when now we're having these calls, we'll also put them out through our main KCB socials.
Okay,
yeah.
John,
Yes.
uko na imani ya vitu kuendelea kuwa better and better ukiendelea, ungependa kufanya nini in the next few months?
Already nishaanza kuzifanya. Hata siangalii few months, angalia 2030. Hiyo vision 2030 ilikuwa ya Kibaki. Mimi venye nilielewa, watu wanafaa to build Kenya. Yeah, nataka kuwa part
of building the nation. It's a good place to be, absolutely. And these are the conversations that push us. These are conversations that we should have in terms of how Kenyans and how opportunities meet to then be able to make better people, then to be able to make better communities, and then essentially, a better nation. And we want to thank both of you for being here this morning. Mendy Njonjo, Director at the KCB Foundation, and John Mutunga, a participant in the Tujajiri program, who obviously now is standing on his feet in a way in which he wasn't before. Thank you very much, both of you, for being here in this conversation this hour. And more like this must continue. That's what builds the nation. Asante sana. Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the News Wire. I'm Leah. Ubaga police officer who allegedly shot and killed a 17-year-old boy in a confrontation that sparked deadly protests in Majengo, Nairobi, has been disarmed and interdicted pending a probe. Police spokesman Michael Mushiri said that the Independent Policing Oversight Authority had been notified of the progress in compliance with the law. Further open and transparent investigations are being conducted by the DCI and the Internal Affairs Unit. He urged the public, particularly the youth in the affected area, to remain calm and to cooperate with investigators by providing any information that may assist in the investigations. At least four people were killed in the riots that followed the shooting, with 2 police cars being burnt by angry protesters. Mandera County has been listed as the best performing in development absorption in the half-year results, spending 32% of its development money. The Controller of Budget 2024-2025 half-year report states that Narok Governor Patrick Olentutu came in second, spending 30% of his development money. The report also noted that Mandera's 1.7 billion and Narok's 1.5 billion was spent on development. The Margaret Nyakongo report also indicated that several counties, including Elgeyo Marakwet and Lamu, Baringo, Kajiado, had spent 5% and 12% on development. And the cooling weather phenomenon La Nina that emerged late last year is weak and likely to be brief. The UN said, dashing hopes it could help rein in soaring global temperatures. The United Nations World Meteorological Organization said in its latest update that there is currently a 60% probability that conditions will shift back to neutral between this month and May, adding that chances increased to 70% between April and June. The WMO had last year voiced hope The return of La Nina would help lower temperatures slightly after months of global heat records, fueled in part by La Nina's opposite number, the warming El Nino weather pattern, which gripped the planet for a year from June 2023. Trans Nzoia Women Representative Lilian Sioi has proposed that the bursary be put in one fund in a reasonable and prudent manner. Speaking during the launch of Ngaf Fund to finance the studies of bright students and from underprivileged families, Sioi said that the current economic situation doesn't allow every student to benefit from free education.
Mimi nataka iwekwe kwa mfuko moja, tulipe kwa shule, wazazi wawache kuja kuomba wanasiasa pesa ya school fees. Na hiyo kitu sio rahisi. The only way yenye naweza fanya tusaidike, hatujafika, country yetu bado iko chini, bado tuna grow. Lakini nilienda South Africa na nikaona mfumo mzuri sana. Kule walikuwa wamecategorize mashule. Kuna shule zile ambazo zinajulikana zinatoka from slums, kwa poor families. Watoto wengi wanaenda hizo shule, utapata ni watoto wa familia zenye ni very humble. So shule kama hizo zinapewa full capitation. Mtoto anaenda tu na uniform. Hakuna mambo ya kwenda kuomba basari.
Regarding rumors of the Ministry of Education delaying funds to finance students in education institutions, Sioi had the following statement to say.
We are having some difficulties about the delayed capitation, but we are managing as a government, national government. So it is a matter of time, but I don't think kama term imeisha kama bado. We had a discussion over the same and we agreed that let it be given first priority before any other thing. So I believe by now shule nyingi zimepata. Kulingana na vile niliona CS wa budget amesema, the first collection that came, they gave it to the schools. Na kama kuna shule hazijapata, niliona kuna walimu walikuwa wametuma waheshimiwa wao. They are working on it and we will ensure that wanafunzi wanapata ili shule ziendelee kurani.
That's the news wire. I'm Lea Ubaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
If we just gloss over issues and hope that time heals, then we might find that in generations to come, we might be back at the same situation. And the whole thing is born of stolen elections.
Spice.
When it comes to the decisions you make, you must be independent. There's no way you can allow one institution to dictate to you how you're going to conduct your operations, how you're going to decide cases. It's a no.
When you weaken the institution to the point where they cannot take action, then you realize that politicians have to come up and now start dealing with the issues.
That conversation has to die. Our politicians do not like the hard stuff. We must insist on the path of doing things right, whether popular or unpopular.
Money changes hands. That is a fact. If you have political goodwill at the highest top, like in Rwanda, then corruption will be an issue of the past. If you don't have political goodwill at the top, we will pass laws, we will amend laws, we will continue passing laws and re-amending laws, and nothing will happen.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Good morning, and it's 6 minutes after 9 o'clock into the final hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this Thursday. And dear Mr. President, good morning. A number of things that we would like to bring to your attention, and this becomes our weekly reminder of some of those things, and we go into them in detail today. And even as we do that, Dennis Aseto, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am well, as you can see. I heard somebody say that. I said I must use it at some point. And there, I've used it, I've extinguished it, it's done.
So how are you?
I'm fine, as you can see.
Okay.
Karibu sana.
Yeah.
Good to have you here this morning. For reasons why we will. CT, we need you to tell us why we should get mortgages. 1, 2, where we should get them from.
You know, we all aspire for certain things. You aspire for a job. You aspire, if you're a man, to hopefully marry or have children.
Oh, okay.
And then you hopefully you plan and aspire to have a place where you can live, that you can call your own. Mortgages help tremendously in achieving this particular dream. Diamond Trust Bank is saying, look, the dreaming is good. We can help you make that dream come true. We have a mortgage plan. Whether you're employed, whether you're self-employed, whether you're in the diaspora. We have a mortgage plan that we would like to discuss with you and something we'd like you to consider. The details are as follows. We have an interest rate that will charge you that will not go beyond the single digit. For 10 years, it's 9%. 25 years, 9.75%. We will then guarantee that that interest doesn't move. No movement. Yes, this is into the wind. It's not a wind vane. It will stay exactly where it is for the duration of the payment.
Yeah.
There are no hidden charges. And more importantly, if you pay in advance of the schedule, we will not penalize you. Now, all you need to do is either come to us physically so that we can have a little chit-chat about this, or you can write to us. mortgages@dtbafrica.com.
Beautiful. And that's the way to go about it. Well, Dennis, since you're here, CT, has a proverb. And we're going to put you to work.
Okay.
Because CT will tell you what that is. And then, tell us what it means.
Okay. We are in the Republic of Burkina Faso.
Traore's homeland, yeah.
Yes. Whose capital is?
Burkina Faso.
It's a question, yes. Anki knows.
Oh.
Anki, help.
Anki.
Help a brother.
Anki knows the capital of Burkina Faso. She's just pretending.
She knows it very well.
Niwapi?
Mom's the word.
Mom's the word, but
Nazana W.
Exactly.
Ouagadougou.
Good.
It's answer now? W, please.
W.
It's OU.
I beg you.
It's the name of God. No, exactly. No, you see, I had to bring it. I had to, because every time I want to pronounce as it's written, I conflict the words. That's why I said that. You see?
So,
please.
To each their
That's why I say,
the proverb.
Ouagadougou. Right. Those who seek revenge must remember to dig 2 graves.
Those who dig revenge must remember.
Bro.
What is it?
This is not about digging revenge. Okay. It's a grave.
Seek revenge must dig 2 graves. Okay. I went real quick.
Funky on us.
I'm telling you to dig revenge on us.
Dig revenge. Okay,
but
we
pretty
dig,
much,
but
what I get from that is in whatever it is you do, City, karma is alive. Will always come back to you tenfold. So whatever it is you do will come back to you. It's just a circle.
Indeed. That's it. Don't expect that you can do, essentially what would be negative to somebody else and it will not come to your doorstep.
Exactly.
Essentially, you're taking yourself down as well. All right. That's great. Dear Mr. President, a number of things happening in the country as they were last week, as they were happening the week before. We saw things kind of take a tumble turn as they have been doing for the last couple of months. And it's far be it from a woke citizenry who must be involved in citizen-centric governance to say we will just look over it. Over the last couple of days, things have been a bit crazy. The Auditor General came out with a report that, if anything, at best is damning in terms of what should be when it comes to the healthcare system. One of the things that she did say is that we don't find, and this is interesting because her report placed it very interestingly, we don't find any indicators to show that the social health platform belongs to government. If anything, there are pointers to show that it is owned by individuals. Now, she did mention in that report certain organizations that have some kind of bearing to who this is, and that another thing that they have been able to find is that the indicators or the elements that were actually supposed to make sure that people's health in the country are taken care of are actually not. Now, there was a flurry of activity, and there has been. The CS for Health was in the Senate yesterday answering questions, and certain people said certain things. Before that, she was also called up on over the weekend by other senators. It has been said by the Super Cabinet Secretary, Prime Cabinet Secretary, I beg your pardon, Musalia Mudavadi, that okay, fine, this one, it doesn't seem like we've gotten it right. Let's see how we can tweak this a little bit. The senior advisor to the presidency, Moses Kuria, has also come out to say again, yeah, actually, we need to make sure that this thing is actually working. Senators Boni Khalwale, Okiam Tata, Edwin Sifuna, it goes across board. Everybody's come out to say, hey guys, perhaps we need to stop this thing and just call it a crime scene completely. No sooner than had he said we call it a crime scene is when Nancy Gathungu in all her humility came out and said, excuse me guys, just a little bit of something, this thing belongs to a few individuals, and I'm not sure if what it was meant to do in the first place is actually being done for Kenyans. And she's left her report and then has gone back to Parliament and said, you know what, guys, I have given you the report. The next thing that should be done after this is actually you, as Parliament, who will tell us what to do. Are you going to investigate it? Are you going to take it to the DPP? Are you going to take it now to investigative agencies to find out what's going on? Dear Mr. President, the health system is in a shambles. Dear Mr. President, the one financial accountability officer that you have in the country at the highest level in the name of the Auditor General has come out to say that this thing has a problem. Before, you could say that there were rumblings here and there from Kenyans, maybe some, like CT says, who didn't ever bother to register, so had no place to speak, who just heard stories from Anki or heard stories from CT one day and said, well, you know what, Anki said it's not working, so it's not working. Or people who just want to criticize government every day and say, well, government is not working, so nothing is happening. That's where the rumbling started, dear Mr. President, and then it rose. It rose to the House of Parliament, dear Mr. President, where members of Parliament started to say, we've received one too many complaints from our constituents that there is a problem, that people go to hospital and not able to get the care that they need, dear Mr. President, that people go and they're told, well, we cannot serve you today. And then it continued to rise. And then your private and rural hospitals said, you know what, we are not going to be able to offer care to people who walk in without cash, or people who walk in and want to use the system because you have not paid us from NHIF days in the billions. So it rose even further, where the oversight body in the House as Senate said, we have to ask questions about what's going on here. Remember where it started, dear Mr. President, with the rumblings from people who were castigated by very many members of your government who said Kenyans are just making noise. And then the smoke has started to rise. And people at accountability level have continued to talk. Now, the most serious one when we come now is your number one financial accountability officer, who is the Auditor General, who has said there is a big problem here. 104 billion shillings ownership actually doesn't belong to government. It belongs to individuals. Dear Mr. President, the question today is very simple. What on earth is going on?
Mr. President, when Kenyans have been complaining over pretty much when SHA was there about the inability to access the services from SHA, which is their right because the Constitution says every Kenyan has the right to healthcare. And when they go to hospital and they find these challenges, Mr. President, all you need to do is to respond. Mr. President, when we talk about the SHA system having failed, let me remind you that we had your senior advisor in this studio who spoke to us, and at that point, clearly, it was obvious that there are problems with this SHA system because he kept on calling governors on this show to get answers. Mr. President, that goes to show that this system needs a lot of work. Mr. President, also your senior advisor admitted in this show that, one, you never took this system through proper pilot process to be able to deal with the issues in this SHA system. Mr. President, the report by the Auditor General today, 104 billion shillings is not pocket change. This is money that has come from Kenyans' pockets. It is taxpayers who toil every single day. Like the gentleman who was in this studio today says that he's working very hard to get 50 shillings to be able to create a single GICO. He is the person you're taking this money from to be able to give him services, Mr. President, that you cannot explain to us who owns it. Today, Mr. President, I don't know who has my data because that system does not belong to you and the back end belongs to somebody else. Mr. President, I need you to tell me at this point, the data protection officer, what is my data? Who is using it? Because, Mr. President, even you, the head of state, cannot control it. And remember that the owners of these very same SHA have said we cannot come. I, as a seto, if I am a techie, I cannot come with another SHA which could be better than the SHA that you have, because the owners of these have stopped you, Mr. President, from coming in with another competing authority that would make our lives even better, Mr. President.
Mr. President, allow me to once again say it's not a very good morning for those who actually need these services. Mr. President, okay, you have said and denied the government is not actually paying 104 billion shillings for SHA system, is it not? Anyway, very well done, Mr. President, for directing the immediate payment of all hospitals owed up to 10 million shillings by the now defunct National Health Insurance Fund, NHIF, as the government moves to address a growing healthcare crisis. Mr. President, thank you for acknowledging that. Thank you for that move. But you see, Mr. President, we have a history of fear, that it is one thing you say and the next that you do not actually implement this. Do you know, Mr. President, that it has gone so bad that there are certain people who are actually losing their jobs in those private hospitals based on this particular issue? I want to urge you, Mr. President, that even as you speak, please keep your word on this particular one, that we actually see a change, Mr. President, especially after acknowledging that for sure there is that crisis in the private sector and in the health, of course, religious-based health institutions. So, Mr. President, I will personally follow up with you based on this, acknowledgement you have made and the funds that ought to reach these healthcare institutions. And Mr. President, it is a matter of not just say it, actually disburse this money, have the verifications done and updated, Mr. President.
Dear Mr. President, it's become apparent to me that the running of a government is an extremely complicated and often very difficult task. Mr. President, it's made much more difficult when the people who have been appointed, have been selected, have been employed to help you run the country do not bother to take the time to inform the citizenry of the things that your government is doing. And not a statement, but in detail so that it is understood. Mr. President, an opportunity not just to hear, but an opportunity to seek answers, to ask questions, to be informed, so that when a topic arises about something as important as the well-being and the health of this nation, the citizens can say that they are informed. On this subject, they are not informed. If they were well informed, the questions that they raise and the questions that they ask would be different. If they had been informed about the ownership of SHA in detail, not a statement, not something that is said in 2 sentences, in detail, so that it is understood how it is going to work, everything about it, over time, explained, talked about. People who are members of parliament, who are elected to represent them, told so that they can also tell their people. Mr. President, this hasn't happened. So when people are angry and they speak in anger, it is because every time information is brought to them, it's like an 11th hour information where they're now being told in detail after a lot of conversation and a lot of gaps have been filled, gaps which did not need to exist in the first place. If these people and yourself had taken the time to actually explain. Mr. President, you can't explain details of the things that happen in this country. Because if that is the case, then what do you need your ministers for? What do you need all these government officials for? You may make a statement. It acts as a guide, a policy guide, but the details of it, this is where we have a problem, Mr. President. We don't know many things. So we fill in the blanks. And when we fill in the blanks, most of those blanks are filled in terribly and badly. It is not that difficult. The people who serve in your cabinet are all Kenyans. The people who serve in your cabinet all grew up in Kenya. The people who serve in your cabinet all understand the fundamental problems that the citizens of this country face. What is so difficult about ensuring that these citizens are informed as they ought to? Or is it that they assume that the citizens don't matter so much? That so long as a statement is issued, it's adequate. So long as something is said every once in a while, it is adequate. No. It is not a demand, it is a fundamental right.
Right.
The citizens need to know, they need to be informed. And Mr. President, that's really what they're telling you.
Indeed. Mr. President, the complaints that you've made over the last few months about Kenyans not being satisfied with anything that you do. You've sat stood at many a podium and complained about the fact that Kenyans are ungrateful. You've talked about Kenyans not taking anything that you say in stride. And let me tell you why. It's because of some of the things that my brother Citi has just said. Kenyans don't know. You don't tell them. You're not being honest with them. And they get annoyed. And I keep saying that Kenyans want you to do better, Mr. President. Kenyans will you to actually succeed. But if you don't tell them, and if you're not honest with them, they will get annoyed. And that is what you see that makes you upset. So the answer lies right in your hands, Mr. President. If things are doing badly, tell them. If you've not been able to succeed, tell them that too. If you started off well and things went down the drain, guess what? Tell them, Mr. President. There's a book called Shall We Tell the President, written by Jeffrey Archer. And over 3 days, these individuals tried to really rally round to stop a security threat that was happening in the city of Washington, D.C. And at the very end of the book, when they had contained the threat, the last line of the book was, "Shall we tell the president?" At that point, there was no need because he didn't really know what had happened. But here you are, Mr. President, in glaring light of the reality that there are things that are going wrong. Nobody can run away from that. Some of your very best generals have even said and admitted to the fact that things are not going on right. Yes. Kenyans are only asking for you to tell them the truth. Kenyans are only asking for you to tell them that if something didn't go as planned, tell them that too. Let everybody be in the same basket so that you can have a better opportunity for governance. And that is what Kenyans are saying to you today. It's what they've said yesterday. And by God, it's what they're going to say tomorrow if things don't change. Kenyans want you to do better, Mr. President. They want you to tell them the truth. If things have gone south, they want you to tell them so that you can find your North Star. That is what Kenyans are asking you. Kenyans are not annoyed because they don't have something better to do. Kenyans are annoyed because you're not talking to them. And when you have an opportunity to, you're not telling them the truth. This is what Kenyans want. Tell them so that they know what to do. Tell them so that they know how to rally around you if they must. But tell them the truth. I implore you, Mr. President, bring Kenyans in on this journey with you. Don't leave them behind because they're equal participants and stakeholders with you in this journey towards Kenya that we're talking about. Don't leave them behind.
Mr. President, to tell you we shall, according to that book, we shall tell you, Mr. President. And we tell you this because we speak to these Kenyans on a daily basis. Mr. President, stop living in this glass house. Just step out of it and speak to Kenyans. You know, we need this information. The Constitution guarantees us the right to information, Mr. President. When you started about universal healthcare, which is a good thing, everybody wants good health system that functions, Mr. President. You said that you're getting rid of NHIF. Sawa. We said, Sawa, Mr. President. But what was the process in coming up with SHA, Mr. President? Was there any bidding that happened? as espoused in the constitution procurement laws of the country. Mr. President, the procurement process, the contractor was selected through a specially permitted procurement procedure by passing competitive bidding, Mr. President. It is at this point, Mr. President, that Kenyans do not have the information on who owns this, where does their money go to, how is it being spent. Because, Mr. President, every budgeting year, we have billions and billions of shillings that have been set aside to go towards healthcare, Mr. President. But, Mr. President, what healthcare when the system that should guarantee that is not working, Mr. President? Mr. President, the Situation Room, the hot seat, an opportunity for you to sit here and talk, speak to Kenyans who want this information. This is my invite to you, Mr. President. You are watching, you are listening. Come, let's have that conversation. Explain to Kenyans in detail, as CT says on this show. In detail, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President. Perhaps your team has failed you, and I like when Aseta says, just step out of that glass house and speak to the people. You're a boy from Sugoi. You're the hustler. You understand what that particular person in the grassroots needs. Let me paint the picture. Mr. President, if you're not aware, patients in dire need of dialysis, cancer treatment and other critical services, especially in private hospitals, are being forced, Mr. President, to pay cash or forgo treatment altogether. How does that sound, Mr. President? Do you have a chance to forgo treatment for such chronic diseases? If you are doubting me, Mr. President, let me give you one particular case in point. Mr. Philip Kababi, who is a dialysis patient. I will help you trace him, Mr. President, if you need to see him. Last week alone, his children pulled 30,000 shillings for 3 sessions. This week, they have skipped 1 session and he's waiting for them to raise more money, because his hospital does not accept SHA. What is left of Philip and his children, Mr. President? Forgo treatment? This is the real, actual picture on the ground. We just don't hate you. We're not calling you out because we want to destroy your reputation. These are real cases on the ground, Mr. President. They are real.
There's a lot that needs to be done, and there are conversations that we should have and that we cannot keep quiet about. Dear Mr. President, this gives us an opportunity for us to tell it to you as it is. Raw, unapologetic, and to say that these are the issues that actually need some kind of focus. They need attention, and that yes, the conversation is around something like this from different quarters, whether it is the rumblings of people, whether it is at the House of Parliament, within the National Assembly, without the oversight, within the oversight body of Senate, coming from the ministry, coming from a CS who failed to give answers yesterday. Not tried, not gave half answers, who failed to give answers about what is really going on. And then it gets to the top, where the Auditor General says that there's an even deeper problem than just not being able to access healthcare. Mr. President, if there's anything that you do when you wake up every day, go through your day, go back to bed at night if you sleep, this must be paid attention to, dear Mr. President. It's 9:30. We'll take a break and come back and continue with this after.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with SpiceFM.
20 degrees and sunny in Nairobi, 20 and sunny in Nakuru, with 19 and sunny conditions in Nyeri. It's 23 and sunny looking into Eldoret, while Mombasa through Thursday will be sunny, currently at 29, and it's 30 and sunny in Malindi. Kisumu 27 will be sunny through the day, with 28 and sunny conditions in Kakamega. Kampala is sunny at 25, with Dar es Salaam sunny at 29. We're looking into sunny conditions at 21 in Johannesburg, and going into Mogadishu, it's 30 and sunny, 21 and sunny in Addis Ababa, and 27 and hazy in Lagos, with cloudy conditions at 25 in Kinshasa.
Spice up your life.
Okay, I think we've come out of traffic hour, more or less. So very little traffic left on these streets today. Whatever was happening on the Eastern Bypass more or less cleared out. And on the Thika Superhighway, just a little bit of that as you approach Survey. Everybody else seems to have gotten where they're going or have settled into no traffic. So let's keep an eye on this through the day. Talk to us, SpiceFM KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 28 minutes to 10 o'clock, and Dennis Seto is here with us this morning, and we're looking at a number of things, and we're appealing to the president. Almost as though we're begging this morning. It's kind of what it sounds like. But those issues remain front and center.
Yes.
But then there are also issues which then pinch on the very value that we place on human life. If we look at human life, it's not just the fact of being alive, but the process that keeps you there, whether it's food, whether it's health, whether it's education, healthcare, all of these things happen. And I dare say that if we up the value, or if we even recognize the value that we place on human life, some of these things are no-brainers.
Yeah.
You don't have to think twice. If your value for human life is high, then there's no way you will look at a school where children are sitting on stones and not feel something. If your value is up there, you're going to say, this cannot happen. If your value for human life and the things and the elements that make it optimum are high up there, you will not look at a health system that doesn't work and be okay. You will not tell Kenyans that you guys are just making noise. If the value that you place on it is up there, you will do something about it. If the value that you place on human life is great, you will say that if we are to provide a conducive environment for things to happen, then let's make sure that we spend every damn moment where we wake up and work to make sure that that environment is conducive. You will do those things. If the value that you place on human life is up there, then March 2023, where bodies were found in Shakahola in Kilifi County, started to rise by the number, where it was 6 one day, and then it got to 29 the next day, and then it got to 117. See, I know the numbers off head. And then it got to 117, and before you knew it, we were at 329, and then we got to 400, and then we got all the way to 634 bodies found in a farm or an expanse of land in Kenya. Dead bodies, children, sisters, brothers, fathers, mothers.
Entire families.
Entire families in shallow graves under one man's voice. This happened in Kenya. Let me walk you through it a little bit. March 2023, that happened. And the alarm was sounded by a child who was actually riding their bicycle somewhere outside and then now spoke to what had happened before. And then we started to hear the names of Mackenzie and people who had started this movement or this church or whatever it was. And then the Interior Ministry, under now Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, went in and said, this is, what did he call it? Genocide, and said so many other things about how we will terrorism and how we will turn this place upside down and we will finish them and we will make sure
no stones will be left unturned.
No stone will be left unturned. We will uproot this entire place and find out everybody who did one thing, the other thing. You know what? In Malindi today, there is a freezer outside the hospital. Where 329 remains of people, majority of which one can assume are Kenyans, are sitting in that freezer. Because you know why? DNA analysis has not been done. We don't know who they are. The people who've been crying for the last 2 years do not know where their kith and kin are. They don't know if their kith and kin are amongst the ones that are in the freezer or they're still in the ground in Shakahola.
Yes.
The Interior Ministry has said, okay, well, we'll do something about it. Then that one went. The other day, we heard that Mackenzie's wife, the charges against her were dropped. And Mackenzie is still in prison. He did hunger strike and has even started eating again. He has forgotten about the hunger strike. And they're waiting for his trial to continue. There are people who are waiting. And there are others who have said, this trial cannot even continue because we need to find out who these people are. Okay, so have you found out who they are? No. Have people been able to bury their beloved? No. and then we've just not talked about it. The last time there has been anything concerning Shakahola is from September 2024, when 16 more bodies were exhumed. Has the exhumation process continued? We don't know.
We don't know.
Have more people been found? We don't know. This did not happen in a far-off land, and Kenyan bodies were brought back. In Kenya. Excuse me, dear Mr. President, what is happening? One can say you have a full plate, which you do. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. But this is an issue right here, that close to 1,000 Kenyans or 1,000 bodies have been found in the close to, because 1,000 less 300 have been found in the ground. Those are the ones that we have. We know. One has to ask, did we forget? Did we forget? Did we forget that families have not buried their loved ones? Did we forget that families don't even know what was happening? There's a court case going on. Yes, we know. But then what about those who've been exhumed? What about analysis to find out who they are?
What happened to dignity?
What's going on?
Dear Mr. President, it's the promise that you gave to the people of Kenya at Kasarani when you sought to protect and uphold the Constitution. The people who lost their loved ones and those who continue to wait and hope that maybe their loved ones are just lost because no DNA analysis has brought back any results. They deserve a communication and response from your government. And the person who's your deputy president today was in charge of the docket, the Interior Ministry, and he knows inside out what exactly, in terms of the investigations going on at Shakahola. Is the place still cordoned? Because the last time I checked, the media were not even allowed to go in there. So the people who have information about this is the government, because they're the ones who are managing the scene of crime. But dear Mr. President, it's 1,000 bodies today. 2007 post-election violence, we talk about 2,500 people who died during that time. This is half that number of people who were killed in this country because there is communication that was given to them by a man of God. Mr. President, today as we sit here, families do not have information or answers from your government. What value do we place on human life, Mr. President? Do you care? Because it feels as though, Mr. President, the only thing you care about is yourself. Kenyans, mjipange.
And sadly, someone would say, oh, why is there so much general talk? You guys cannot even point out one person. No, we can. Just most recently, 47-year-old, guys, 47-year-old Stephen Mwiti, tearfully speaking before the court, said, you know what? I was once a father of 6. And as I'm speaking, I have no child. Do you know who he blames? We still call him suspected cult leader, Paul Mackenzie. What am I trying to say, Mr. President? And I keep saying this over and over again. I can point to a real case in point or example of who exactly is suffering. It is not made up by media. We are not just creating situations. If you could reach Stephen Mwita, he is a father of 6, but now a father of none, has no children, and still crying to the courts for an answer. How many more families are broken? How many more families are asking, where is the dignity, dead or alive, of our own people? Mr. President, our Constitution is rich. They say it's beautiful. But the most integral part of that Constitution is the respect to human life. Mr. President, those bodies are Kenyan people. Can we please progress with dignity? I implore you, for the sake of those who are broken, they're keen, watching or even listening today, are in a dark place, Mr. President. Who is in charge? Please call them out. The consistency in giving us the reports, it's almost, the word would be exciting to have a headline when it is reactionary. But what happens to the follow-up, Mr. President? What has taken over so much that we're forgetting what is happening at, or what happened at Shakahola?
There's a phrase that is often used with regards to politics, Mr. President. It's expediency. It has been said that you are a man who keeps his promises to people who are faithful to you, and it is evident, and that is something that one can argue It's not common fodder. It's not common credit in politics. Yet you have that ability to honor promises that you've made to people who have supported you politically. It's a short hop to make good the same promise you made to the citizens who also elected you and who elected some of these people. 2.5 years down the line, it is clear and it should be obvious that there are people who cannot do whatever it is you ask them to do. You travel in vehicles, and every so often you are informed that these vehicles have gone for service. And there's something called, among the things you do, is an oil change. The checkup has been done. We look at those who serve in your government, and we look at the things they do beyond talking to us. You understand this better than we do because you work with them and you see them more often than we do. Service delivery is what was the cornerstone of your campaign, Mr. President. And this is something that can only be achieved with the people whom you have selected and opted to work with. We are at a critical phase in the history of this country with too many balls in the air and too many things not working the way they should. Friendship is a wonderful thing, but not when it puts you in a difficult position where you are not only the center of extreme criticism, but you are sometimes seen as the problem that people have. A decision has to be made by you as to the way forward. And I speak as one of the people who are citizens of this country, whose president you are. And I speak as someone who wishes you well and wishes that this government would be a government that we'd speak of in the years to come as one of the best governments this country has ever seen. That possibility exists. But time is running out, Mr. President. You do need to act, and you do need to take the bull by the horns and make those difficult decisions that must be made to steer this country in the direction that is moving away from and take it back to the direction it should move towards.
One would ask that whether a leader takes into consideration the thoughts and, conscience of its people. But is it possible that everybody has the same sentiment over the same thing and could be wrong? Dennis?
Nope. There is a problem when the only voice that you listen to are those who clap for you. There is a problem when dissent is considered disrespect. There is a problem when an individual in the highest office would only seek to reward incompetence and not those that check him out. I mean, we live at a time when if you dissent on what is being done, what will be done to you if you're a member of parliament, you will be ejected from committee leadership. It is a time when if you the president is at a rally and you say no to what he's saying, the next thing you know is you're picked up and you're being labeled to have been drunk simply because you disagreed with the president. We live in a country where when the young people of this country stood up to say no to the finance bill, again, the value of human life, they were being shot outside parliament. No answers to date. We live at a time when bodies were found not far from our offices in Kware. An individual was arrested, was let go. To what value do we really place on human life in this country? These are questions that we ask. And Mr. President, as the city says, you have people who should work to make sure that this is done. The entire leadership structure in appointed the security appointed by you, Mr. President. Mr. President, stop rewarding mediocrity, Bana. You have to do better, Mr. President.
We're looking at some of the comments that you've made this morning, and Atticus is of the opinion that, stop begging. Demand. that you will have this inferiority complex and it will be the downfall of Kenyans. Atticus says they bow in front of thieves and say, please, other people would have apprehended the criminals no matter their titles. So stop begging is what he says. The motherland doesn't seem to have a president that honors the title president. We seem to have taken Kenya as personal enterprises that you run and make decisions as one wishes. Owen Karaoke says now the entire country has known who the president really is. He also says that, this Shakahola massacre still scares him to death. The president that we are addressing and the president that we know are two different people. There is a lot that's going on in the minds of people. There's a lot that people are saying. My implore just continues to be that listen to what Kenyans are saying. If you can, my father used to say something sometimes, and you say, behind, did he say behind or beyond? Beyond the noise, there is something that is being said. There is a message, and that you need to listen to what it is. Kenya is telling you something. And why these conversations are significant in the manner in which we have them, that it is Shakahola at this point. It is 30 minutes before when we're talking about the Auditor General's report. It is a health system that's a mess. It's education that we don't know where it's going. It's infrastructure that's belly up. It's promises that you made that people don't know where they're going. It's you come and say something tomorrow and people laugh at you. Why? Because lived experience has shown them that they can't, that it's not going to be, that it's going to be something totally different. We plan and plan and plan. I forever planning. When is this baby going to be born? And those are the things that people come to you and they say, boss, we have a problem with this. So these issues that we raise, like I say, Shakahola today, Auditor General's report tomorrow, education the next day, these are symptomatic issues that we're bringing before and saying, you know what, they must be dealt with. If you're going to have a Kenya, we talk about economic stability. What do you think affects stability? What do you think affects stability? When your people are engorged with this displeasure or dissatisfaction about things that you said. They didn't tell you to make these promises. You said that you would do it. And so they're coming to you and they're saying, hey, you said you would. But when we open our mouths to say you castigate us and tell us that we're making fun of you, but you said you would, Mr. President.
Gave us charters, Mr. President. You signed them with us.
You told that you were going to ensure that they would live in a place of peace and stability. You said this was going to happen. And so when 634 Kenyans and maybe people from other nationalities turn up dead, shallow, buried in a place not too far from here, we got to ask the question. When people cannot afford their dialysis care over something that you had an entire cohort created and designed to make sure that it works, that's a problem. One life lost is one life too many under your watch, Mr. President. I implore you to hear the message behind the noise. I implore you to hear the message behind the humor and the caricatures. I implore you to hear what Kenyans are saying and do something about it. You cannot take the stance that you're taking because it will not get you anywhere.
Even religiously, for those who read the good book, the Bible, the Father does not give you a snake when you ask for fish. He'll give you just fish. A caring father. I mean a caring, true, honest father. Mr. President, if you promised us fish, please don't give us the snake, just the fish, because then we are banking on you that you will keep your word. And like my colleague always says, we wish you well. A win for you is a win for this entire beautiful family called Kenya. And let me tell you, Mr. President, some have said, if you're not comfortable, please leave the country. Hey, Mr. President, I will not leave. Personally, I am going to be here and I'm going to demand for the change.
And he's not going away. Let's take a call from someone this morning. David is calling in on the line. David, good morning.
Morning to Madam Do.
How are you doing?
Hello.
Yes, David, we can hear you.
Yes, I'm calling from Nairobi.
Yes.
Yes, I'm concerned, Madam.
Yes, we can hear you, David. Go ahead.
Yes, the trajectory our country is taking is completely worrisome.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, David.
Yes. Now you realize that the Auditor General has come out very, very clearly, and she has said that the money that is being contributed towards SHA is actually not going to the government account, meaning that the whole compartment is not owned by the government. So it is very simple. This means that the idea behind SHA was actually not to help Kenyans get the so-called universal health coverage, but instead the agenda was to milk money from the helpless populace.
Yes, David. Indeed, that is what the report has said.
Now, okay, what is the solution to this, Madam Du? For me, the solution is very simple.
What's your solution? Quickly, David.
Kenyans should look beyond politics of tribalism. Okay? Then come 2027. We have to say that enough is enough and send all these people home. There is no way we can expect a combination of Ruto and Raila to give us a solution. These are people who are the real problems bedeviling the country right now.
Thank you very much for your comments on that, David. I mean, and just also to hear from a few more people. Asante sana for sharing that this morning. And just to continue to hear where we are in terms of what you would want the president to do. Dennis, you had a few comments.
Yeah, for me, I want a president who's not full of doublespeak, man. I cannot have a president who tells me something today and changes the next day. I cannot have a president who says today I have banned Harambee, then tomorrow you're giving 20 million shillings without telling us where you're getting that money from. Mr. President, 1.4 million shillings, which is your salary, even if you go to church, 10% of that is 140,000 shillings. Mr. President, where did you get 20 million shillings to give out? You're donating land, public land. That is not your job. We have National Lands Commission under Article 62 of the Constitution who are supposed to do that. Mr. President, you don't have those powers. Stop lecturing us and telling us that you can do these things because, Mr. President, we know ikatiba tumeisoma. You're not the only one who has it.
CT?
I was thinking of Shakahola and what it is that it symbolizes in our nation. In Kigali, there's a genocide memorial. And it acts as a reminder of the terrible things that happened in 1994. When the horrors around Shakahola were revealed to Kenyans and the world, it presented a nightmarish situation that one prays one never has to witness or one has to encounter, and yet here we are.
Yeah.
When things are not working in a country, people die. When services are not provided as they ought to for health services, people die. When CBAs are not honored and you have health workers going on strike, people die. When young people protest because they want a better country than the one they have and they're shot, they die. And some disappear. We are etching into history many, many incidences and issues that will follow us for a very long to come because these things that I've mentioned characterize us as the sort of people we are. It characterizes us as a nation. When money that is intended for very specific functions that should benefit the public do not end up where they should, and yet it goes elsewhere. When the number of people in the country who are on the brink of starvation increases, when the number of jobs that people have reduce on a daily basis, then again, these events not just characterizes us as a people, but it characterizes our leadership. And that will be etched into history. That will be the remembrance, just like the Kigali Genocide Memorial. So alongside with Shakahola, all the issues that have guaranteed that Kenyans are denied the very fundamentals that are their right will go down in our history. And Mr. President, unfortunately, when you're the president of a country that has all these issues, heavy on your shoulders will be this task, but it is you that people will look to, and it is you that people will blame. But that doesn't have to be the constant.
No.
There is always a time and an opportunity for change, if you will it, and if you desire to make that change.
If you hear what your people are saying, because that's it. If you hear the message behind the rumblings, if you hear the message behind the tears, if you hear the message behind the fear, if you hear the message behind the frustration, then you would take it as a good thing that people are asking you to actually make a change. Is the change going to come about in the people that you've appointed beyond political favors to actually do a good job? Make the change. Is it going to make sure that you stop the bleed from money that goes from one place to the next instead of where it's supposed to go in terms of corruption? Then stop the bleed. Is it about projects that should have started and should have continued and then that they don't? Stop the bleed. Is it for you to listen to what Kenyans are saying and saying, Mr. President, this is all we want. We want to send our children to school. We want to be able to eat even one square meal in a day. We want to be able to take our sick to hospital and come out under the promise that you made without having to remove an extra shilling from our pocket, which guess what? We don't have. We want to be able to afford life. We want to be able to survive. We want to be able to then stand up and say that there's a problem without having to be under the fear of being disappeared. Kenyans just want to exist within the four walls, if there are four walls of this republic, and say, you know what? Can we just get along without fear, without lack, without corruption? At least get it down to levels where people can then say they'll be able to operate. And then be able to call out a government where you see that they have not been accountable and then not fear not getting home at night. That you can open your mouth and say something and you be afraid that somebody's going to pick you up because you voiced an opinion, because you voiced a fear, because you voiced a concern. Mr. President, those things have to change. And we already know that you're asking Kenyans for another go at the seat. I tell you that these things, if you fix them, I can predict today that Kenyans wouldn't have a problem even putting you back there. But here we are saying that, you know, things are going pretty south. And if they're not fixed, there's going to be an issue. There already is. People are not happy. People are disgruntled. People are frustrated. There's an opportunity for you to fix it, dear Mr. President, by the things that you hear. Don't take it personally, because it's not a personal fight, but it's an opportunity for you to actually fix things and make them run, and make them run properly. Dear Mr. President, it is our hope that you hear what we are saying today, and that you hear what we say when we bring these conversations to your doorstep every week, and we'll continue doing them day after day. Dear Mr. President, good morning. It's 10 o'clock.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the News Wire. I'm Leah Obaga. Former Judiciary Chief Registrar Anne Amadi and Justice